Good evening, everybody. We'll call this meeting to order. Oh, no. Okay, thank you. I can't read this. Please hold. Yeah. We'll begin with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Chumash, Tongva, Fernandino, Tatavaam, and First Nations on which we are learning, educating, and living. Mr. Maxwell, would you please lead us in the pledge this evening?
Certainly.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, folks. Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Quinterio, please take roll call at this time.
Member Tabbitt?
Present.
Member Ponser Kamkar?
Present.
Clerk Agakanian? Clerk Agakanian is not here today. Vice President Weisberg?
Present.
President Ferguson? President Ferguson is not here today.
Thank you. Reporting on closed session, the following action was taken on item 3B. No. No, it doesn't, I don't think any action was taken. Okay, no action was taken. Thank you. Adjustments to the agenda. Ms. Sponsor Kamkar.
Dr. Weisberg, I propose that we have our virtual speakers go first in public comment, if that's okay.
It's okay with me if it's all right with Ms. Tabbitt.
All right.
Thank you very much. Any other adjustments to the agenda? Okay. Items for future agenda. I have one. Please hold. For our consent agenda for the next meeting, I would like to amend the protocols to our governance committee as they currently are. Any other items for future agendas? Okay, so we are going to jump ahead quickly to our virtual speakers who wish to provide a public comment virtually. Were asked to sign up via Google form at the link provided before 3 p.m. yesterday, indicating if their comment pertained to an item on this agenda or a subject within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education. Comments regarding agenda items will be taken now, and comments regarding subjects within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education will be taken during the final period of requests to address the board. When it is time for a virtual speaker to address the board, the speaker's name will be called and the speaker should activate their microphone and camera. Speakers must be present in the Zoom webinar when their name is called in order to address the board. Speakers are also requested to state their name and their pronouns if desired prior to addressing the board. Please note that the chat function has been disabled. After a speaker completes their public comment, or if the 5-minute time limit has been reached, the speaker will be removed from the Zoom webinar and can continue watching the meeting by streaming it at burbankusd.org at BOE meetings or on the Burbank YouTube channel, where the school board meetings are now streamed as well. Ms. Quinterio, do we have our virtual speakers present? The first virtual public speaker is Savada Izayan.
It doesn't appear that our virtual speakers have logged in.
So none of our virtual speakers are present, in which case we are going
There are
to.
no virtual speakers present at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Vonk. With that being said, we are going to close the virtual public comment and go back. No, you're helping. Okay. You're going to go back to, thank you for bearing with me, everybody. We are going to do one of the most exciting parts that we get to do, which is our oath of office for our amazing student board members who we're so happy to have with us. It's so exciting. So I want to announce you, and then you're going to rise, and we're going to say the oath of office together. It's so exciting. We have all three of our high schools present today, which is something that we've been wanting for a really long time. And so I want to introduce you to, from Burbank High School, Andranik Bilbulian. Is that, correct me if I'm wrong, please. Okay. From Monterey High School, we have Isabella Najarian. And from Burroughs, we have Paris Tesfu. Yes? Is it right? Did I say it right? Okay. Okay. So you're going to raise your, I don't know where we normally do this. Oh, let's go down there. You can, or you're just going to repeat after me too, but you can certainly bring those with you. Absolutely. After you, after you. Okay. Okay, so you're going to repeat after me. So you're going to say I and then your name. So I.
I, Isabella Najarian.
Oh, are we saying it all?
You're saying it together.
Okay.
You guys hold the mics. I don't need a mic. So you're going to say I and then your name. Do solemnly swear
I, Paris Tesfu, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California,
That I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Excellent. Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back this way, and then I'm going to have you fabulous people sign these. Wait, what? Picture. Picture. As a picture. Audience. Everybody gather together. Wait, place what?
Shara's gonna tell us all.
Shara's going to do it. It'll be great. Yeah, figure it out. It's about you, not me. Yay! You guys, welcome. It's so exciting. Take these back. I have these. Thank you, Ms. Thank you, my friend. So before we move on, I just wanted to give Superintendent Paramo or any of the board members just an opportunity to say something to our fabulous new student board members.
So what I want to say is that I enjoyed getting to meet you virtually the other day. and to walk you through what your first board meeting was going to be like. You're doing amazing. You have made me very, very proud, and I am so excited to hear your reports tonight.
Thank you. Welcome. I hope you have a lot of fun, and I hope you learn a lot through the next year. Some of it, you may be thinking, I should be home studying. Probably not, but that's what you're thinking, right? And so, but there's so much here going on, and you'll be in the know and get to learn a lot about really what's happening district-wide. It's just not close enough, I think. So welcome. Looking forward to getting to know you.
Welcome, welcome. I'm excited that you guys are here. It's been very lonely. I usually sit here. It's been very lonely with just me and Miss Quiterio over there, so I'm glad to have our students back. My husband was a student board member up in San Francisco Unified when he was in high school and still talks about it very fondly. So I hope it's a wonderful experience for you all, and we're really excited to get to know you and to hear from you and to hear all of your wonderful reports. It's always great to hear what's happening at the schools from a student perspective. So welcome. And I forgot about this part. My report of what I have done. So since we were last doing these, I managed to make it to Washington Elementary, which was my last my last general ed school that I hadn't made it to. That was the second week of school. And then on Monday, I went to Burroughs for AP African American History. It was truly wonderful. The students were making African masks based on, they were assigned and could choose various African kingdoms, and they were doing symbolism. They were each able to tell me a lot about the civilizations that they had chosen or were assigned. It was really cool to see both the rigor with which students were approaching the content, but also the ability to bring in art to really help them absorb and process that information. And so I think Mr. Hatch is doing a really wonderful job. It was really wonderful to talk to him and talk to students. And so I'm really proud of us as a district for piloting AP African American History. It's exciting. And then the other thing that I wanted to plug, which is this Saturday is Burbank Pride in the park. So Saturday is September 23rd. It's at McCambridge Park from 12 to 6. I know I will be there. I assume Dr. Weisberg will be there because I think she told me that already. It was, yeah, exactly. It was a wonderful experience last year, and so I highly recommend that folks come out. That's all I have.
Thank you. I know that Board President Ferguson is going to be really bummed to not be here because he was a student board member as well. So happy to have the three of you. It's always great to hear the updates, but we also really want to encourage you to tell us what's going on. This is a great platform for you to develop advocacy skills, which I'm sure you already have, to let us know what you want us to be paying attention to. And you don't have to wait until the board meeting. You should reach out to us whenever you want if there's something going on that we can help and support you with. I think a lot about the oath that you take. There's so many different ways to show your commitment to your community, and you guys are choosing to make a really strong commitment. Public service is hard and not easy, which is the definition of what hard is. But it's truly, it speaks to your characters that you're choosing to be here every week and to engage because you want to make your schools a better place for everybody in them. So I hope you're really proud of yourselves. I'm sure your families are really proud of you as well. And we really look forward to working with you as the year progresses. So welcome to the board. Okay. We are going to move on to request to address the board. An individual or group representative present this evening may address the Board of Education on any agenda item by completing a white request card and turning it in to Ms. Quiterio. Speakers are requested to state their name prior to speaking to the board.
I believe the student board members are prepared to give a report. Is that
Fantastic.
correct? Awesome.
I could not be more excited. Thank you. Retracted. All right. Why don't we begin with Isabella from Monterey High School? Yeah, you can go to the, so if you want to come up to the podium, I know it's like a big.
If you don't have a report, that's okay.
It's also okay. Oh, yeah, it's totally fine.
Yep.
Fantastic. So we are going to begin with Burbank High.
And Dranick.
Yes, I know, I just can't.
Hello, perfect. Good evening, distinguished board members, Superintendent Perano, district staff, and members of the Burbank community. My name is Andronique Boboyan, and I am a senior at Burbank High School, as well as the ASB president. I'm honored and very excited to be the student representative for Burbank High School this year, and will be providing you with a report this evening of all previous, current, and future BHS activities. To start the year off, ASB met this summer in preparation for registration, future school events, and new fundraising ideas. We began this year with a lot of fundraising events, starting from our freshman class all the way up to our senior class. Freshmen will be hosting a fundraiser this Friday during lunch, where students have the opportunity to pie ASB members in the main quad. We will be selling one pie for $3 and two pies for $5. Our sophomore and junior class officers fundraised with a after-school boba sales on August 18th and September 20th. However, although fundraising is very important and necessary for a successful school year, the year really took off with our class of 2024. Class of 2024 Senior Sunrise on Friday, August 25th. This event gave seniors the opportunity to join each other on the football field an hour before school started and experience seeing the sun rise together. Moreover, with the new school year comes some new changes. This year, our admin staff is joined by 3 new faces. Michael Farber, which is the new assistant principal of counseling and special education. Jennifer Freeman, our new assistant principal of student services. And John Wells, who is this year's AP of Athletics and Activities. We are excited to see the positive effects that our new administration will have on our school year this year. Furthermore, our bell schedule has some new changes as well. So third period on Mondays and Wednesdays will now be extended for about 20 minutes. This is because students will be shown BHS TV during class. BHS TV is Burbank High's version of student-led announcements of weekly events. One of the biggest events so far this year was our 115th anniversary festival. On Friday, September 1st, alumni from graduation classes ranging from all the way back to the 1950s joined us at Burbank High. The event consisted of various raffle prizes, student-led campus tours, an award ceremony, car show, and we ended it off with a whiteout-themed football game. Following up to the event, we had Spirit Days and lunchtime activities every day of the week from August 25th to September 1st, with Spirit Days such as Jersey Day, Western Wednesday, Iconic Duo Day, and others. New and interactive lunchtime activities were also introduced, such as water balloon toss, basketball competitions, and a lunchtime rally to celebrate all of our fall sports. In the continuation of promoting school spirit, ASB also hosted Soka Senior at the main quad last Friday, September 15th. Students were given the opportunity to soak a senior ASB member with water during lunchtime. Above all, I'm proud to announce that Burbank High has close to 100 clubs this year. Burbank High coordinated the annual club rush this year on September 8th. Students were able to go out and interact with club presidents of all of the intriguing clubs they found during lunch. The following week, which was September 11th to the 15th, we aim to embrace and promote Suicide Prevention Month and Hispanic Heritage Month. Our Student Mental Health Board planned a series of spirit days and lunchtime activities throughout the week. Wednesday the 13th, we had a kindness tree put up in the main quad where students were able to spread positivity to one another. Thursday the 14th, we wore blue and purple for recognition, and Friday, suicide prevention bracelets were being sold for $3 during lunch. In addition to this, ASB created and put up Hispanic country flags around campus. Apart from this, Burbank High will be having a series of cultural dances performed during lunchtime on October 12th. With this week's events, Burbank High School's ASB, alongside UCLA, planned and held this year's first blood drive this Wednesday. I'm excited to share that we surpassed our goal of 100 signups and reached all the way up to 136 signups. And out of the 136 signups, 66 were qualified to donate, and we received 66 pints of donated blood. The UCLA staff was super friendly, and with their help, we were able to create a very successful and comfortable environment for volunteering blood donors. Tonight, girls volleyball will be playing against JBHS at 6 p.m. in Burbank High's big gym. Boys water polo will also be playing today against Buena High School at 3:15 p.m. Burbank High's boys water polo program is currently ranked as a top team in Division II and will be entering their league tournament with a 9-win and 3-loss record. Moving forward to upcoming events, ASB will host the foam party tomorrow, September 22nd, from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. On Saturday, September 23rd, students will be able to interact with college representatives and learn more about the college application process through this year's College and Career Fair. Over 90 schools will be attending the fair this Saturday. Additionally, in a few weeks from now, Burbank High's drama program will be performing from October 5th to October 14th and at Wolfson Theater. They will be producing this year's fall play, Night of the Living Dead. On top of all of this, our student store will be selling 2023 to 2024 yearbooks, special 115th anniversary merchandise, and ASB cards, which provide discounts to most, if not all, Burbank High's events to help boost school spirit. Ultimately, this year is off to a great start with a lot of pridefulness and participation from students and staff, and I can't wait to see what the rest of the year holds in the near future. Are there any questions or clarifications?
Ms. Tabbitt?
It's not a question. I just wanted to, I volunteered to help out with Mr. McGinnis with the 115th. I was so impressed with the ASB kids.
Thank you.
The amount of sweat equity that you put into that event. Every sign that was posted up was made by an ASB student. They were organized. In fact, your vice president, I wish I could remember her name.
Emma.
I'm so sorry, Emma.
Mhm.
And your president, well, especially Emma, was coordinating. I thought she was a staff member. She was so composed and in the mode, you know. She really was amazing. These kids worked so hard. The part I was really excited, I got to be there at lunchtime and see the spirit rally where, I mean, it was a football game day, but the band marched out and all the students were out on the quad being polite and respectful and really showing their school pride. And every fall sport came out and walked past in their shirt or uniform, and the kids were just really proud. You could tell. It was a great place to be, and I'm really, really, really impressed with our students at Burbank High. So thank you for all you did to make that day. I mean, it was a great day, extra special. Thank you for all the work you did. Really appreciate it. As a Bulldog alumni, it was really awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank
That means
you.
a lot coming from you. Thank you.
Fantastic first report. Looking forward to the next one.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Tesfu from Burroughs, come on up.
Good evening, distinguished school board members, Superintendent John Paramo, district staff, members of the community. My name is Paris Tesfu, ASB President of John Burroughs High School, and I'm here to give my report on September 21st, 2023. First, I would like to thank JBHS for allowing me to serve as their ASB President this year. It is a great honor and privilege. For my first report, I would like to start with an intro. I am Paris Tesfu, and I started my educational journey at Roosevelt. I moved on to Dolores Huerta, and now I'm in my senior year at Burroughs. I've always been interested in politics and civil participation, so I'm happy to be here. First, I would like to report on our largest change to our campus so far, the new ID and lanyard system. As far as school culture goes, it seems to be integrating well with our student body. There's been little major pushback on the new system, and most understand its importance. I would say about half the student body has bought into the system so far. We have many new changes to our admin this year, but the most exciting change is our new principal, Mr. Kenny Noob. We now have 4 noobs on campus. Freshmen are successfully integrated into the student body skillfully due to the help of Link Crew. The senior class meeting in the last week of August connected the senior class officers to their class by giving them updates on senior activities like Senior Sunrise, which was a major success, grad night, prom, and graduation itself. Senior class and ASB will continue to gauge support and disapproval for the stage debate. We also had our homecoming reveal today at lunch, where the students found out their theme for this year, A Night Under the Floating Lights, as well as our homecoming nominees. Our 2-day club rush was immensely successful. Many clubs have grown on campus and continue to gain members and popularity around campus. We had our first blood drive of the school year this past Tuesday, and we are proud to hold the talent show hosted by sophomore and junior class next Thursday. Tomorrow we will have a lunchtime activity to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. Next week is Kindness Week, a spirit week focused on spreading fun and kindness throughout the school. For me, I am elated to report the pilot class of APRI African American Studies is going amazing. I am so excited to take the class, and it has exceeded my expectations. Mr. Hatch is a wonderful, kind, compassionate teacher, and I am so excited to see how the class develops. And you can follow the class on Instagram at JBHS APAFAM. And I want to end my report with student concerns. Some concerns. At JBHS, AP, just like AP, and then AF, African, and then American, so AM. Yeah. And some student concerns we have right now is bathroom and locker room hygiene concerns. There's lack of soap, cleanliness, and other essentials in the bathroom. That's pretty much, that's all for the student concerns. I can take questions or comments, right?
Ms. Habit?
Thank you for all you do to make our schools, JBHS, a special place. There's something about, ASB and the work you put in brings about that school spirit, makes our schools feel safe and fun for kids to come to. So really, really appreciate that. And I do like to volunteer, so if you ever need anything like Burbank High did, just ask. I'm happy to help out.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for the report and for bringing student concerns. I think that's always something that we love to hear. Not that the bathrooms need soap. We don't love to hear that, but we love to know so that we can try to help. Just welcome.
Thank you all for listening. I'm so excited for a great school year.
Don't go yet.
Oh.
Wanted to thank you as well. I would love to find a time to talk with you offline about ways you think we can gain more student buy-in. I think it's great. It's a really good sign that for the first time ever we're doing this, and you think about half the student population is bought in. And I'm sure that hearing from you, because no one knows better than you what we can be doing to bring more student buy-in on. And just to reiterate, don't wait to let us know. I mean, I really want you to feel comfortable voicing student concerns here, but something like that, let us know as soon as it comes up, and we will work as quickly as we can to address it. So thank you for a really informative first report.
Thank you.
Thank you. How lucky are we? Okay. Now we're going to go back and forward in time. I read the first half of our public comment overview. I'll finish it up. Not more than 5 minutes may be allotted to each speaker, except by unanimous consent of the Board of Education. The superintendent may refer the matter to the proper department for review. The district is providing alternatives to in-person attendance for viewing and participating. Any individual or group representative may address the Board of Education on any agenda item or subject within its jurisdiction during one of the 3 public comment sections. Before we move on to public comment, I did just want to let our student board members, if for any reason you have to go because you have like a crazy amount of homework, that's okay. All right, so I have, oh, thank you. Oh, okay, thank you. So we will call these cards in the order that we receive them, although I believe, all right, we're okay. So the first card I have is from Linda Walmsley.
Good evening. My name is Linda Walmsley. I am a lifelong resident of Burbank, a product of the good education given to me by this district, and had the honor of teaching in our schools for 48 years prior to my retirement. I am speaking to you tonight on item 11C on your agenda. You are discussing a timeline to consider placing a general obligation bond measure on the ballot. It is my hope that you will amend your timeline to call for an election in November 2024 rather than March 2024. In 1997, I was hugely involved in the campaign to pass the bond that yielded $112 million to begin a much-needed modernization of our schools. My job, along with community leader Jack O'Neill, was to raise $100,000 to fund the effort. We worked with a broad-based community committee to achieve the goal. In the end, we roasted then-Mayor Bob Kramer to pay off the $17,000 debt we had. The successful campaign was led by paid consultant Larry Trambatola. The committee was independent of the Board of Education and allowed Mr. Trambatola to be the guide that led us to success. It took the better part of a year to plan, fund, and execute this effort. Again, in 2013, the district placed another bond on the ballot. Again, Larry Trambatola was the paid consultant that led an independent committee to success. This time, former Mayor Marcia Ramos was the citizen chair and had a broad-based committee of community activists working with the guidance of, the guidance of Mr. Trambatola. Again, it took the better part of a year to fund, plan, and execute this effort. Your agenda item says that you are asking ISOM advisors to begin the process of conducting a voter survey. This is a good first step in the process. The last item on your timeline says that December 2023 through March of 2024 would be the time for the campaign committee to run the campaign. On their website, ISOM Advisors states, quote, they implement a proven strategy to win. And they say, quote, they provide nearly all services critical to success. Perhaps the most important thing said is that they asked the campaign committee to, quote, fundraise, garner endorsements, and provide volunteers. If I am following the timeline on your agenda, you would need to fundraise, garner endorsements, and get volunteers in place in December. Then beginning in January, the campaign could start in earnest. Considering that ballots will be mailed out on February 5th, this entire effort would need to be done in about 8 weeks and during the holiday season. My question to you is, wouldn't past successes tell you that any effort to pass a needed facilities bond should be on the November ballot if success is the goal? Thank you for your time. nice email today.
Thank you, Ms. Walmsley. My next card is Mr. Barry Sarna.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Paramo, and staff. My name is Barry Sarna. I'm a Burbank resident and taxpayer. I'm also a retired teacher of 25 years that is currently serving as a substitute teacher here in the district. I'm here tonight to address item 12G on your agenda. If approved, you will authorize a $15,000 contract with Urban Futures, Inc. to perform a survey that will enable the district to consider placing a general obligation facility bond on either the March or November 2024 ballot. I think this is a great move for the district. It will give you the information needed to write a ballot measure that can clearly state the facility's needs for the proper maintenance of our schools. It can also address how to keep our buildings current to meet the needs of educating the city's youth to become productive citizens. It's my hope that the one thing you will change is that, in this agreement, is that the bond would be on the November ballot. Gathering the support needed to pass the initiative in March would be, in my opinion, very difficult to do. Last thing I'd like to say, I want to commend Dr. Paramo for the incredible email I saw earlier this evening, compassionate and informative about the terrible, aggressive situation going on in Azerbaijan and Armenia. Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sarna. Next up is Ms. Terry Vargas.
While I'm waiting for my partners, I just want to quickly say, Paris, I'm so proud of you. Proud teacher moment. I just had to. I love to see that. Okay, good evening. My name is Terry Vargas, and I'm a teacher at Dolores Huerta Middle School. I am also a Burbank resident and a proud product of the Burbank schools at Edison, Luther, and Burroughs. I am with Francisco Gutierrez, designated ELD teacher, and Marissa Silva, our ELD instructional assistant, who really is our partner teacher because she is the glue that holds us all together with this program. We are currently the ELD squad of teachers at Huerta. I know you've already received and hopefully read the letter Francisco wrote and sent to you all, and we are here to put a face to the current situation facing our English learners across the district. As you know, we have had an unprecedented increase in the number of second language learners entering our district this year, and this has created quite a dilemma in our schools. Unfortunately, the increase in numbers has led to an increase in class sizes, but not an increase in student support. I currently teach 5 classes of English language learners. 4 of those classes are beginning learners who are predominantly level 1 and 2. I have those students for 2 hours each, so I have the same students for period 1 and 3 and the same students for period 4 and 5. In periods 1 and 3, I have 23 students, and in period 4 and 5, I have 19 students. Though this may seem small by normal classroom standards, it is quite large for an ELD classroom, and even larger when you are working alone. Last year, I had 1 ELD 1 through 3 class and 1 designated ELD class. My largest class was 11 students, and I had the same aide but full-time, partner teacher, full-time. Now we have double the students and double the classes with less instructional assistant time. This is why we are here tonight, to stress the importance of adding additional paraeducators to support our ELD teachers. I can only speak for myself, but I know the teachers at the other sites are feeling the same stress of meeting the needs of our students with various cultural backgrounds. Currently, in just 1 of my classes, I have students that speak Arabic, Chinese, Vietnamese, Russian, Ukrainian, Armenian, Spanish, and Tagalog. I am teaching with my phone and my trusty Google Translate, which I admit, he isn't always the most reliable partner. It's a daunting task to do alone, many times for 2 hours straight at a time by myself. I feel like the vaudeville performer who spins the plates on top of the long poles. As soon as I get them spinning, this one at the end is going down, and I'm running back and forth to make sure the plates keep spinning. Yet, here we are at the end of week 6, and I feel I'm not been able to meet my students' needs and give them the attention and instruction they need. I know a position has flown, and I was told we were promised 1 additional position, but it is still extremely concerning because by the time we truly get help, we will be almost to week 10. 10 weeks of missed instruction because their needs are not being met. This is 1/4 of the school year. That means these students have one less quarter to achieve English proficiency. 10 weeks, that will be hard to make up. I feel that, though, because I'm handling the situation, and I'm not an openly complainer as much as I could, the situation in my classroom may be overlooked. Again, I'm doing the job I'm being trained to do. No one has really come to observe the situation firsthand since week 1, so maybe I feel everything must be okay. That's far from the truth. Now, consider this your invitation to come visit anytime. Unfortunately, the job is hindered because of a lack of educational support for our most vulnerable population. I also currently serve on the district's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and during these meetings, all I can really think of is the lack of equity for our second language learners. Where is the equity for them? We need to address this situation immediately, or these students risk being lost in an educational system they are being ill-equipped to navigate through at this time. I am very lucky to teach at a site with a very understanding admin and supportive coworkers that actually give up their prep time to come in and give me assistance, knowing that even an extra body makes a world of difference. They shouldn't have to give up their time, but they do. Why can't we hire a long-term sub to help until proper instructional paraprofessionals can be hired? We need help. Our students need help now. They deserve better. In conclusion, I was part of an SST meeting yesterday for one of my ELD students because sometimes not only are they learning the language, but they also have a learning disability. And at the end of the meeting, the father made a point to say the following: I keep hearing that you are sorry that the classes are large, that you want to help, but I'm trying to give my son help, but the classes, we have so many students, the classes are too large. Well, I'm here to tell you, I know for a fact more students are coming that don't speak English. I know this, and you better be prepared. Well, we better be planning now to be prepared, because right now we are not. And again, our most vulnerable population is suffering immensely.
Thank you, Ms. Vargas. Thank you. Our next speaker is Richard J. Is it Casado?
Casado.
Oh, I did it.
All right, you got it right.
Nailed it.
Hi, my name is Richard J. Casado. I am 73 years old. I am a homeowner in Burbank. Have been in and out of Burbank since I moved here in 1980. I have no children, so I have no skin in the game for this. But my points that I have a few, and I want to see if I can get through them rather quickly here, not to. Putting up a bond measure to me is like kicking the can down the road, because eventually the investors of those bonds have to be paid back with interest. And that ultimately has to come from the taxpayer in some way, okay? I don't know how. Maybe it's increasing the sales tax from 10.25% to 11% to pay for it. I don't know. But I don't think it's fair for retirees on fixed income now to have to pay an additional amount of money for other people's children going to school. I don't think it's fair. So I think parents should be financially responsible for their children. They make the decision to have a child, okay? Wanted or unwanted, you make the decision. Now, let me ask any one of you a yes or no. Would you go to a Lexus dealer and buy a Lexus and expect the government to make payments on your car? Well, no. Most people wouldn't. They would accept the responsibility to make the payments on their car. Now, somebody's going to say, well, cars are not the same as a child, but it's the responsibility. So I don't think parents should expect taxpayers to completely finance the education. Partially, yes, but not completely, okay? So now most people would come up here and say, look, I don't think that the bond measure should go through, that there's got to be another way, and then walk away and not come up with a solution. Well, I have a solution, or at least that I want to offer. Parents should have some skin in the game, and I think $50 per child per semester is not unreasonable. People spend $50 a semester at Amazon. Some people spend $50 a semester at Starbucks. This isn't like going to a college where it's $2,000 per semester, $4,000 per semester. It's $50. And I think when parents have some skin in the game, that they're going to expect a high quality education because they're paying for it personally, okay, besides their taxes. And the other thing is when people pay for that I want to address the quality of education. Today what we find out in schools, you can read it, you hear it, whether you believe it or not, you have to do your own homework, but there's the conversation of education versus indoctrination. And what I'm talking about is that students are taught what to think instead of how to think. And that being said, when a parent has skin in the game and is making an investment in their child's education, they're going to be concerned as to the quality of education that they're getting. Students have to receive an employable education that students can qualify for a job. When I was in high school, I had auto mechanics. I was taking an engine apart at 15 years old. When I graduated high school, I went to work at a dealership as a training mechanic. So I had welding, I had home economics, I had woodworking. Those are all things that are very, very employable. And then 3 last points. California and federal taxes are ultimately creating a growing condition of poverty, where it's taking more and more money out of people's pockets, and then they have less money to spend on rent, on food, on a home, a car. And the other thing too is we also, I don't know if any of you are following this on a daily basis or a weekly basis, to understand that now in Sacramento, they're trying to gut Prop 13. Okay, so Prop 13, if they get their way, is going to be really horrible for taxpayers as far as paying property taxes. So this is an additional tax burden on that if this happens, and I don't think that's a good deal. I'm sorry to get off on the tangent of
I'm sorry,
Prop
Mr.
13.
Casado, your time is up.
Okay, yeah,
Thank you
all
very
right.
much.
I
Appreciate you.
yeah, okay. All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Casado. Next up is Schlossman.
Welcome to our new student representatives. You should listen to this young man on how to raise funds. He seems to know what he's doing. Ms. Posner-Kamkar, why did you want to change the speaking order tonight for the virtual speakers first? We didn't have any, but the point is the same. I'm sorry to hear that our kids don't have soap and paper towels in the bathrooms again. I don't know why we have to hear about this over and over again. When we voted to elect all of you, we wanted to have the guardians of the galaxy here, folks who make good decisions for our kids and administer the district properly. Instead, we got 5 Decepticons. And that's a fact. It's a fact from your actions. Talking to you, Ms. Tabbitt, and Mr. Agakani, and I wish he was here. You know, Ms. Tabbitt, you cost the district, how much, $500,000 in the past year or so from your poor choices? With Mr. Hill, you renewed his contract before it was up and gave him retroactive raises, only to fire him a short time later and give him a year's salary at close to $400,000 you cost the district. And then, with Mr. Paramo, you give him a $40,000 a year raise. But then on top of that, he's got to get his almost 20% for his retirement contribution. There's another $8,000. And you praise Mr. Paramo on how good he is, but you give him another $10,000 to do with what he wants to hire a coach. So you got to answer for all these things. And then you come to the taxpayers and ask for another bond because of your mismanagement. But that's what you do, mismanage and ask for bonds. You know, over at the Gain Credit Union where they offer the class for the kids on financial literacy, the 5 of you should go take that class. You might learn something. People are suffering right now. You ever bought a gallon of gas lately? You know COVID's coming back. You know inflation is going crazy. You know, do you go to the grocery store and buy food? Of course you do. So you know what I'm talking about. The nerve on you, the gall to ask us for another bond. If you got a leaky roof, fix it. If you've got an air conditioner that's going to break, fix it. You waste money hand over fist and you think nobody notices. You think today's a new day and we forget. But all of you are getting ready to really, really screw over the property owners. And it's not only the property owners, because they just pass it on to the tenants, and the grocery store owners pass it on in the form of higher goods. I mean, it's just silliness. It's poor decisions. I read in this preliminary report from Perkins Eastman, solar panels again. I asked the 5 of you for a report, a cost-benefit analysis on the solar panels we already have, if this is a good investment. Nothing, silence, crickets. I want to know before you spend more money on solar panels, do the ones we already have pay for themselves? So I haven't got that answer, so I already know the answer. You're talking about a survey. Is it legal for you to use district funds to conduct a survey to find out if the folks in Burbank will support a bond and how much they will support? Because those are cheap car salesman tactics. The first thing they say is, what's your monthly payment now? Because they know you're used to paying that, and then they add a little bit more. And that's what you're doing with this survey. The first questions are going to be, how much will you support? And you ask it in a twisted way that makes it sound so benevolent. So I don't think that's legal to be calling people and do it. You want to do that? Do it on your own dime, not the taxpayer dime. And I'd like to hear what Mr. Paramo or Mr. Cantwell has to say, whether that's legal or not. Because in the last parcel tax, it was not legal for you to do that, and you didn't do it. You remember, you gave up your salaries, and you folks, not you, you weren't here, and you paid for it. I'm glad you think it's funny what I'm saying. This is serious business. When you ask parents to participate and they don't have time because they got to work 2 or 3 jobs, and the single biggest thing in the success of a child is parental involvement. Can we agree on that? So stop making it more expensive for all the parents. Okay.
Our final card is Mr. Larry Applebaum.
He's for it.
Thanks.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Paramo. I'm really happy to say that. My name is Larry Applebaum. I am a 64-year resident of this town. I was in your seat for 12 years, and I was responsible for putting the 2013 bond on the ballot. If you remember Ted Bunch saying, we finally let him do it because he thought it was going to fail. And it didn't fail. It didn't fail because we have a history in this town of taking care of our facilities. Most of the people do not know when they drive by McKinley or Roosevelt or Washington, which, by the way, Perkins Eastman needs to know that we have a Miller Elementary School and a Washington Elementary School, because it sure wasn't on their report. That tells me that that's an issue right there. That being said, those schools were built in the 30s and 20s. They're almost 100 years old. When you drive by, you don't know that they're 100 years old, because unlike LAUSD, which has taken a destroy campaign, they go and they knock their buildings down and rebuild them, we take care of our buildings. But we take care of our buildings thoughtfully. And to Mr. Schlossman's comments about putting more burden on the taxpayer, I am not for doing that. What I'm for doing is keeping the tax rate no more than $55.18, which is what we told the taxpayers in 2013 would be the cap. We have, that will be rolling over, the 97 bonds will be rolling off of the rolls in the 24-25 tax year. And so we will actually have a fall in the taxes. I'm not suggesting that we raise taxes. I'm suggesting we keep taxes the same. And in doing so, we will provide necessary funding to maintain our schools. Because unlike what was the previous reality in this state, where the state encouraged and actually demanded school districts to put money aside into deferred maintenance, and they matched it, that has gone away. There is no matching funds for deferred maintenance. And we haven't decided to put money into deferred maintenance because we haven't had the money, because we have people who need salary increases and we need more staff. And so we have other uses for the dollars that we get from the state. The gentleman who came up here and spoke about charging the parents, $100 a year is $1.4 million. That isn't going to cut it, unfortunately, because the facility needs of this district are very robust and vast. And hopefully when we have the report, they will start talking about numbers. Because in 2012, when we did the roof study, we had 50% or 65%, I think, of our roofs are going to be in poor or failing condition between 2025 and 2030. That was a long time in 2012, but it's not so long now. And if you've done any roof on your house, you'll know that the costs have gone up precipitously. So I am imploring you to have these advisors come, do a survey. I would be very interested in them surveying both dates, because I think that there's a lot of controversy about which date is the right date. And I also think that you need to be very careful about signing a contract, which Mr. Cantwell will be signing when you approve it, that indemnifies the board for providing payments for bond sales, which you shouldn't be paying for that at all. The people that are selling the bonds take that and they charge it to the people who are buying the bonds. So we shouldn't be putting any of that on the contract. I think the contract should be gutted and basically put them doing a survey. And then you can come back and do another contract. And just one last thing. There was transparency in what we did in 2013. We did RFPs for everything. Even though professional services contracts, you don't need that. And I think that that would be a good strategy to employ this time. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Applebaum. Ms. Quintero, is this a white or blue? Okay. Apologies to Mr. Dionysian. This is, although it looks blue, a white card. So you are our final speaker in this agenda-specific public comment period.
Hello. Hi, my name is Andre Dionysian, for those who don't know me, or for those who might have forgotten. I wasn't planning on speaking, I just wanted to listen. There are far more competent and I think robust speakers to advocate on behalf of the survey and following bond measure. I look forward to knocking on doors with the rest of you, but I feel as though someone should briefly explain an economic concept called a public good. At its foundation, the American public school system is not designed to be a subsidized school system. It is supposed to be a public school system. It's supposed to be free and open to everyone, regardless of means, regardless of station, regardless of any number of factors. And our goal is over time to make it more and more and more equal across the board. The notion of having parents pay any sum of money to send their child to school, I think is not only ludicrous, but is advocating against making a profoundly crucial investment in not only the people in Burbank and the students of Burbank and the children of Burbank, the next generation of Burbank, but also the next generation of Americans. This is fundamentally critical to our nation's continued growth and prosperity. And I know this sounds pretty basic and fundamental and something, very schoolhouse rocky, but I think it bears repeating and underlining that we should not entertain, even for a moment, any such suggestions. I know you guys all know this. I'm not. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We do have one final speaker. Miss, I'm going to mess your name up, but April Fangio? Yes. Great, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. Hello. First of all, I was a virtual speaker who I never got the link. So, and me and one other person also got a bad link. Mine just never showed up. So I raced down here, and that's why I look the way I do, which is, thank you. But that's actually, I had a whole thing I was going to say, but now I'm kind of, first of all, the system is not working with the links and joining in virtually. Let's just put that out there. I don't know why why we can't just call in. We can do it for city council. Why can't we do it here? That'd be great. Because we're parents and parents can't get away. I told my husband I'd be back in 20 minutes. So now here is what I was going to say. It was something about the bond measure, and it was about how, well, I don't remember what I was going to say other than I'm not sure about this bond measure. But I have 4 minutes, so there are a couple of things that I could say. My kids go to private school, and it breaks my heart. When we moved to Burbank 4 years ago, I wanted them to go so badly that to do an immersion program, a dual immersion program, that I showed up a whole year early. Whoops, she was too young to enroll her in kindergarten so she could do dual enrollment, And I saw the way the district was going, and I couldn't send my kids. I still participate I listen to all the school board meetings on my earbuds, washing dishes at home, because that's what parents can do. And we can't afford private school. I don't know what I'm going to do when the third child comes to private school, has to go to private school. I work extra jobs in the cracks of my life to pay for it. But Burbank has always had a great reputation for having a great school. And I had one other friend text me because I was asking people about this bond measure because I'm not a homeowner. I don't understand a whole lot of it. So I was asking around. And one person said, I bought a $2 million house so my kids could go to BUSD. And I'm pulling them out this week. And I said, I understand, but I'm so sorry. So here's the point. I don't want to ramble on, but here's the point that I'm getting at. Ditto to some of the comments I heard earlier on my earbuds that parents need to be involved more. And we're working 3 jobs just to make ends meet right now. We can't get to board meetings. We want to be involved. We want the best future for our kids. And we don't want to sell a kidney to send them to school. And so where I'm going with that is, okay, there's a problem with the link. If we can just call in, parents could people support that which they help to create. And parent involvement is huge. And the system that is set up right now with the lack of a link or a bad link or that you have to come in and do Zoom, and it sends a message that you don't want parent involvement at all. and or keeping all the comments to the very last 10 o'clock at night when our kids are asleep and on top of us, because if you're a mom, you get that. When you're like, they're asleep underneath you, you're okay. If you're not a mom, you don't get it. Kids fall asleep on you and you can't move? No? Okay. Well, I would like a more of an understanding of where parents are at, like what we've heard in here, and I don't think to be perfectly honest, I don't believe that the parents and the community trust the board with money. And I don't want to list reasons why. Because we had a superintendent who lost track of X amount of millions of dollars. We've had millions. We have more people in the administration has gone way up of high paid people and not enough teachers who are the bread and butter of the community. And so I don't think the community trusts the board asking more money from them. And that was a really crappy way of not eloquently saying that I wanted to say that would have been much more eloquent had I not had to race out the door. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, I believe that is our last card. So we are going to move on to superintendent comments.
I wanted to address April and what I know you have to leave. You said that you needed to be back in 20 minutes. No problem. Thank you. What I wanted to say is that I absolutely want parents to be involved and to share their ideas and thoughts. I think it's very critical. I apologize. I have no idea why the link isn't working, but clearly it's going to be a priority for me to figure that out. And I will look into using a phone call to be able to have parents come in and chime in. If that is something that I can figure out and we can do, then I will absolutely do it because I do want parent input. I just want you to know that and that I will definitely look into it. So I apologize. I'm very sorry. Ms. Vargas, I've known you for a little while. I just want you to know I have so much respect for you. You're an amazing teacher. You are a blessing, and you're also blessed to be working with the kids that you are working with. I am telling you from the bottom of my heart, these kids mean a lot to me. I know they mean a lot to the people on the dais. Several of us got into education specifically to advocate for our English language learners. So it is a priority. I was not part of the conversation, honestly, about 2 aides, 3 aides, but I'm going to look into that. So I know for sure one aide position is flying. Don't believe it's closed yet. So we're going to get on that right away. I will tell you that the way we pay for and fund for our EL program is through the LCAP. So I will meet with Ms. Young, Dr. Young. I'll meet with Dr. Knappich. I will meet with Dr. Anders because Mr. Knappich, Dr. Knappich, and Dr. Anders are the ones that facilitate the LCAP plan. And I will look to see what other resources we have there to be able to provide more assistance. The good news is that this is the year where we are redoing the LCAP plan. The window is open for us. So this is our opportunity to relook at how we're servicing our EL kids, and we will be able to look at that and make adjustments where needed. I sent an email to Francisco. Is it Francisco? Yeah. It's the LCAP plan is open. We'll need to look at our ratios to see how that needs to be adjusted and how else we can serve our kids. So working with the BTA, I can tell you that we did put contract language in for our ELD kids as it pertains to their language classes, and there is a cap there. So when the classes start to get too big contractually, we've got to open up other classes. I'm saying that to assure you that we don't want them to be large, and we made that commitment by putting it in the contract. So I am on it, and I will promise you to work on it, and I will email you. I advocate and support you coming to the board and speaking at the podium. I also want to tell you that if you email me or call me, you will be able to see me and see me really quick to be able to address any concerns you have. So please don't hesitate to do that. Mr. Applebaum, Ms. Walmsley, Mr. Sarna, I've known you for so long, and I just want you to know that I have so much respect for you. And so when you come up here and you speak and you talk about the bond and you give your perspective, I just need you to know that I'm listening. I'm listening to the advice. Mr. Applebaum, you've done this, so the advice you gave to us at the podium is something that I will definitely be reflecting on and thinking about so that we can make a good decision as we move forward. Mr. Schlossman, it wasn't lost on me. You asked a question. You deserve an answer. You're asking about district money being used to fund the survey. There's going to be a report later in the meeting, and I'm going to let Mr. Cantwell, our CBO, answer that question for you. And my last comment is to Richard Casado. I just want you to know that you brought a lot of points forward. The one that resonated with me the most is your comment about seniors being on a fixed income and the burden that puts on seniors. So I want you to know that I heard it, that it's what I wrote down on my paper, and it's something that I will work with staff on in terms of addressing that. I think that what I'm hearing is that it's not necessarily an increase in tax, it's trying to maintain the same tax. So I know that that's still a tax. So I want to acknowledge that, but I don't think that there's really any intention to really increase it, and we're hoping not to do that. At least that's my point of view. So I will end my comments there, and I'm pretty excited, anxious to hear the reports today, and to learn more about what Perkins Eastman has to say, and to learn more about the survey that we are asking the board for consideration on. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Paramo. Board member responses.
Thank you, Dr. Weisberg. Can you hear me better? Let me know. How's that? Better? Okay, thank you. Teachers from Dolores Huerta, and I only know Miss Vargas. We go back. So I know if Mrs. Vargas is here sharing her thoughts and her opinions, it's because she really, really thinks it's important, because I know how much you care about kids. And you want to make sure that they have ample opportunity to learn and grow. And you're going to put everything you have into that. And obviously your colleagues feel the same way that you do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bothered to show up tonight. So thank you for that. And I have the utmost faith in Dr. Paramo in making sure we work through this. And most importantly, Ms. Vargas, you said something to take a look at where we are and look forward. And let's make sure going forward this doesn't happen again and these kids aren't affected in that way. That was a very important point. Thank you for bringing us and reminding us all of we got to keep looking forward as well as looking at where we're at. So that's right. Okay. So thank you for coming tonight. I know. I know we're a little obnoxious about that too. We're sorry. I know if you know, right? So also would like to thank Mrs. Walmsley, Mr. Sarna, and Mr. Applebaum for coming out and sharing your thoughts and feelings on your experience with bonds, and doing it in a kind and very succinct way so that your thoughts come across clearly. I appreciate that. And I heard you. I did. I know how much experience the three of you bring to bonds in this community because, as you said, Mrs. Walmsley, the two that we've had, you've worked on, and they were very successful. And part of my now's the time ideology is because the first bond is ending. The repayment of it is ending. And so, like Dr. Paramo said, I'm not interested in higher taxes or more taxes. I want to keep those taxes flat and going. If you own property in Burbank currently, you are paying $55 per every $100,000 of assessed value And you're currently paying that towards repaying the 97 and 2013 bonds. When that ends, yes, that payment will go away. But if we put this bond in, whether it's March or November, I want to do what's best as soon as possible. There's other things, and you know, Ms. Wamsley, I'm always happy to talk. Or Mr. Sarner, Mr. Applebaum, always happy. But I want to keep that going because, as you said, I served on the facilities committee with Mr. Applebaum for a good 8 years. And things need replacing and repairing, and it's not the same cost that there was for the 97 bond even. The amount, by keeping this bond going, if we're so lucky, will generate enough funds for the next 10 years that we can make sure there's air conditioning and roofs and safe walkways and glass in the windows and whatever else happens to be paid for out of those facilities money that make it so that you folks at Huerta and all our other schools can have productive days because it's cool in your classroom or the lights are on or all those other things. I just anyway, I want to thank you for coming out and supporting and sharing your thoughts as you did. It's greatly appreciated. And I know that whatever way you feel, there's a positive way to communicate. And so I appreciate you doing that. Mr. Janisian, also thank you for your thoughts. It's hard enough. I had 3 children, and I also own property. So yes, I pay that tax myself. And the 3 kids, it seems like every time you turned around, the extras that a school can't do all the time, the kids were fundraising for or asking their parents for money. And it does become hard. But like the last speaker that was here, you're going to do whatever you can to support your kids, if you can, even if it just means showing up. And I think that's a good reminder. So thank you for your time and time tonight. I think that's it. We talked earlier. I thanked Burbank High for the 115th anniversary celebration. It seems as if the community and past alumni had a fabulous time. So many folks worked very hard to make that happen, most especially Mr. Ernie McGinnis, a history teacher at Burbank High, spent numerous hours putting that together, and it was a job well done. There's the next Thursday, the 28th, the Arts and Ed Foundation is having the State of Schools fundraiser. Please check our website if you're interested in attending. It is a Thursday evening, so it should be a good time with lots of good information coming out. And I think that's about it. Hey, to all our sports teams and our performance groups that have programs coming up or games coming up, good luck. Please be good sports, and don't forget to have fun too. Thank you.
Ms. Ponser-Kamkar.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Tabbitt, for plugging the State of the Schools. I forgot that one when I did my Burbank Pride. I'm gonna go out of order here, but I'm gonna group some things. The reason that I asked for public comment from our virtual speakers to be moved is because in the interest of saving money, we have a free Zoom license. And that means that the meeting ends after 40 minutes. And so I was trying to make sure that if there were Zoom speakers available, that they were able to get into the meeting. That's kind of a ridiculous reason, but is true. That said, I'm excited that Dr. Pramo is going to work on making sure that we have better access for our future public speakers. And I apologize that, the link was not working. To Ms. Vargas and our ELD team, thank you for all that you do. Ms. Vargas, you know that I visited you the first week of school, but not since then, and then also again in this during the spring last year. And so I was just really amazed by the work that's happening in there, the number of languages that you are working with, the level of English that your students are coming in with. I know it's a lot, and the learning that I saw happening in that classroom was really beautiful. So thank you. You know, we're going to get into the DLAC report sometime relatively soon, and as you'll see, like there's a real need identified that we have a lot of students coming in, and we've been able to quantify it. So thank you for coming with some ideas. I think the substitute one is kind of an interesting one, and I'm certainly hopeful that we'll be able to get some permanent aids in the classroom ASAP, because I saw that not only in your classroom, but I think walking around at Burbank High, I heard that from a number of teachers there, that really the need is for more ELD aids. So I support that, and thank you for coming and for advocating for your students. On the bond, I want to thank Ms. Walmsley, Mr. Sarna, Mr. Applebaum for your support and for your insight. Right. I think one of the reasons that we're doing the survey is to understand when the bond could be most successful. We know that there might be a state bond on the ballot also in November. We know that there might be a parcel tax or other local taxes that could be on the bond or on the ballot in November that could impact whether people would pass a bond. So that is something that I believe is in the questionnaire, is really trying to understand how people think about those trade-offs. But, and the other reason that we asked for the timeline was just to even understand, is March like possible logistically? So now I think we have what that timeline looks like. That timeline makes me very nervous, to be honest. I'm looking forward to getting back the results from the survey so we can understand how those things interact. You know, I am also a property owner in Burbank. I also have one child who is currently in school. I also have another that will be in school next year. So I do have skin in the game. I made that skin with my own body over the course of, 18, 19 months. I appreciate the civics lesson from Mr. Dionysian. It's a public good. There is a reason it's public education. Our parents are not only putting their most precious, not possession. My children are not my possession, but their most precious thing that they've ever made with their own body out there in the world and expecting you to educate it, right? And so we also have very active PTAs. We have very active parents in our community. And I appreciate the way that we interact with our PTA to get parent feedback. I think it's important that we get feedback from the rest of the voters in Burbank. And our parents are going to give us the most insight in terms of what's going on with their students and how they feel about our schools and whether they're ready and trust us to send their children to our schools. And so it's for that reason that I want to make sure that my child is in her classroom because the AC is working. I mentioned last meeting that we had a week last year where she was in class in the library because the AC was out and it was 110 degrees outside. And so we need to do things, to Mr. Applebaum's point, to fix the AC units, to fix the roofs, and we don't have that money in the general fund. It's just not there. It's a lot of money over the course of all of these schools. And so I'm looking forward to the presentation from Perkins Eastman about what the total tab is for all of that maintenance, and also to understand when the best time is to bring this decision to voters. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ponser-Kamkar. Excuse the voice, folks. Okay, so much. So Ms. Walmsley, thank you, and thank you for the continued email correspondence. It's really unbelievable. Both you and Mr. Sarna speaks volumes about BUSD, that here you are, you're no longer teaching, well, you're subbing, but you're back here advocating because that's the kind of investment you have in our district. So I'm really deeply grateful to both of you. And I've really enjoyed our conversations via email and hope you'll continue to come back. And I think it could be really helpful for us when the bond date, all this is decided, to sit down with Mr. Applebaum and everybody who's worked on this in the past and really get some feedback about what worked and what didn't work and what we should be thinking about that we might not be thinking about yet. So hopefully, even if it's just one-on-one conversations, you'll be open to doing that, because I would certainly love to learn from all of you. Scrolling. Mr. Sarna, you mentioned Dr. Paramo's email today, and I actually wanted to highlight it because I think it is another indication of what a great choice Dr. Paramo has been and the sort of empathy he's brought to the district. That wasn't something that the board asked him to do. It wasn't something that, we had a really lovely email from a community member, but I know that Dr. Paramo had already been thinking about it. So I too really thought it was a thoughtful, meaningful communication to our district, and I'm thankful to you for bringing it up. Ms. Vargas, I will be back as soon as I get a day off from school. You will see me again. I've been really blown away by the advocacy of your principal, Ms. Hatch, and also Mr. V, who have been reaching out constantly to us. It's so clear to see the struggles, right? And one of the things that's been helpful for me in these conversations, and also Francisco, in your email as well, is it raised a bunch of really interesting questions for me that I don't have the answers to. And that is always great for me because it means I'm gonna learn something new, which is gonna help me be better at my job. So questions about ratios, questions about LCAP, questions about, where we're putting our paraeducators, all of those things I maybe wouldn't have thought about or asked about in the same way. So I'm appreciative to you. I'm not happy that there has to be this struggle in order for the questions to be born in my head, but I am grateful to you for advocating and bringing them forward. I had something else. Your point about equity is extremely well taken. I think what's challenging, right, is that I think you know how deeply we care about this issue, but you can say it a million times. You have to be able to back it up with action. And so I know that Dr. Paramo and Dr. Knappich, who's away at a conference, which is why he's not here, are really thinking about how we can address these needs, not just for the short term, but for the long term. So I hope you'll keep communicating with us and letting us know, is it better, is it worse? Here are some ideas. The long-term sub-idea wasn't one that had been brought before. So this is so helpful. Another thing we've been talking about too are, more creative ways to fly positions, right? So Dr. Paramo is going to sit down with Dr. Knappich and talk about steps moving forward in positions, but I do want you to know how deeply we're hearing you and how committed we are to addressing your concerns. And just again, a shout out to the admin and to the team at Huerta. It's really pretty powerful to see how much you advocate for one another and how deeply you care about one another's success. So they're obviously not here, but shout out to Mr. V, shout out to Robin Hatch, the principal at Huerta. Mr. Casado, thank you for being here. I too have no skin in the game, which is a phrase I hope we never say or I hear again after tonight because it's so gross. But it's like, can we come up with a different phrase to say you don't have kids? Yes, I will share that with you. So what I like to think about when I think about the investment we put in our schools, right, is that it's not just about the school, it's also about the community. I am a renter, I'm not a homeowner, but if you're a homeowner, you know that your property value is linked directly to how successful our school district is. So strong public schools means your property value is going to stay in a good place. That's true, right? So I think it's sometimes about us shifting our mindset a little bit, because I could talk to you about the eloquence of Mr. Dionysian, that it is about the public good, right? We want students who are going to go out and be educated and be actively engaged in the world around them. That benefits all of us. But even if you remove the student stuff for a brief minute, thinking about your own well-being, the investment you've placed in your home or your property, things like that, the safety of your community, all of those things are vastly important. So even if there's a different kind of investment, whether you know it or not, you actually do have a huge investment in the success of Burbank Unified. So I really appreciate what you're talking about and the concerns you brought forward, because you're certainly not alone in those concerns. So you also talked about, and it's interesting because it's not related to us. I have no control over this, but one of the things that's so difficult when we're talking about our growing condition of poverty is the gap between cost of living and what we're paying our employees, right? The cost of living keeps going up. Schlossman brought up a whole bunch of things that cost more, right? But we're not paying people in a way that allows them to afford those things. So this poverty gap, as you so Dudley pointed out is true, but we have to be thinking about that different as well, which is why we fight so hard to get our teachers better pay and our classified staff better pay, because we know how expensive it is and how expensive it is to live in Burbank. So I appreciate it. I hope you'll continue the conversation with us and let us know your concerns so that it's a dialogue. So we appreciate that. To Mr. Schlossman, I always thought the Decepticons were cooler than the Transformers. They just made cooler noises and did cooler stuff. I already saw one email put up by you and your spokesperson that already twisted the bond and the language. And so I want to clarify this. Like, we know that our voters in this community are smart and informed, and they are not going to be swayed by misinformation that is communicated either here during public comment or via email. So this conversation is going to continue, but there's no twisting. This is a bond that already exists. Ms. Tabbitt talks a lot about it being a continuance or continuation of a tax. This is not something new, which was the language in the email that I saw. This is a continuation. And it's not one roof leaking. It's not one air conditioner breaking. We have our phenomenal Director of Facilities, Dennis Maxwell, here, and he can tell you, we're talking about 65% of our roofs that are going to be needing, and Mr. Applebaum, you talked about this, that are going to have to be fixed. We have pools that need to be repaired. If we're talking about retaining teachers, they can't teach in classrooms that are leaking or have mold because of the water. We can't do that to our teachers or to our students. The only way we learn is when we have a safe space in which to learn, when we feel like we can learn safely. So this is about our investment, not just in the infrastructure, right, but in the safety and well-being of our teachers and our kiddos. It's really, really important. And I think it speaks to Mr. Dionysian, your comment about the profoundly crucial investment that we make in our public education system. It's huge, right? And so if you're somebody who doesn't care about the students, if you don't care about the teachers, if none of those things matter to you, then maybe your property value does, and maybe that's what's going to motivate you to vote for a bond. Ms. Fangio, I know that more often times than not, our links work very well. They have in the past, they will continue to. It's always been an investment of the district to allow accessibility, which is why we've kept the Zoom. My guess would be, although I have no information to back this up, that the phone system that our city council uses is probably expensive, which may very well be why we don't use it, because we want our money in the classrooms. There is ample opportunity to engage. The reason that we switched around our public comment periods, for people who don't know, is because during COVID, there was a lot of general concern that people wanted to bring forward. So we shifted the way we normally do things to allow general public comment, anything within the jurisdiction of the board, to go first. What we found in recent, post-COVID, when things have sort of started to transition back, is that we weren't getting to the business of the district until 10 or 10:30 at night. So we have not reduced the amount of time of public comment, but what we have done is ask that the speakers who have something agenda specific, they have gone back to going first. So we're not trying to quiet anyone down, but what we're saying is what's most important is the work we're doing in our classrooms with our students and with our teachers and classified staff. And so that's how the shift came back. I'm assuming best intentions here, but it is difficult to hear someone malign our district who isn't in our district. I understand that you live here, but to sort of make a blanket statement that you saw what was happening in the district and chose not to send your kids, what was happening in the district? I think we'd all really like to. I have not heard from you in the 3+ years I've been on the board, but I'd like to. I'd like to know what kept you from sending your kiddos. I'd like to know what your friend with the $2 million house, what kept them from sending their kids in the district, because only when we know can we address those issues and make some changes. But just to sort of say, I saw things and I didn't do it, that's difficult for us, because we're here because we want to be problem solvers, right? We want to identify issues and work to address them. I think it is difficult. I get very protective over the people in our district because I know how hard they work. So perhaps this is coming from a slightly defensive place, but it's hard to hear somebody trash a district without having experienced it yet. We have phenomenal teachers. We have phenomenal schools. We are blessed to have people who stick around even when we can't pay them as much as other districts, who show up on a Thursday night because they care so deeply about the equity of their children, who worked in the district for almost 50 years and came back to talk about a bond. That's why people are in Burbank. That's why people stay in BUSD. So let us know what wasn't working, but you don't speak for the whole community of parents, most of whom are really loving their experience in Burbank Unified. And you take the time to let us know what they're struggling with so that we can address it. So if you'd like to continue the conversation, we're here. You can reach us via email. I hope that you will. And I'll close by saying this from also a place of being protective. We have done, I think, a really good job of being transparent, especially in light of what happened with the accounting error in early June. Devastating. You've heard us say it before. There are not words, so I'm just going to let it go. But I am going to say this, that Mr. Cantwell and our financial team, our payroll team, people are working their butts off. We've shared every step along the way, and we're not done yet. We still have our fiscal audit that's coming, and not only are we going to get that, but we've requested there be a report, not just to the board, but to all of you. So the feedback we've gotten, obviously not from everyone, has been positive. We are making really substantial changes, including some things in the agenda tonight, to address what we know are antiquated policies that we need to adjust, that we need to correct. And if people don't trust us yet, which I totally understand, I would encourage you to engage with us more. Engage with the process more. Come to the board meetings, email us, talk with us, have conversations with Mr. Cantwell or Dr. Paramo. Learn more about the work that we're doing, because everything we do is to rebuild that trust that we know was lost and to make sure that people are trusting us with the hugely important job that we do. So thank you to everybody. I think that's all. Yeah, thank you to all of the speakers, to everybody for coming down tonight. Okay, we are going to move on to reports to the board. 11A, report on the recommendations to the Board of Education from the District English Learner Advisory Committee. Ms. Cuseo.
Thank you, Vice President Weisberg. Dr. Knopik is not here tonight, but Jennifer Goldenberg is, and she's going to do a presentation. She is our teacher on special assignment, so serving as the district coordinator who oversees all of our English learner services and programs.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to have Ms. Goldenberg with us tonight.
Big expectations. Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's there.
Is it there? Thank you so much. I was going to ask that. Hello, school board. Hello, Superintendent Paramo. Yeah, right. And district staff and everything. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm so nervous, and yet at the same time, it's something that I really like to do because I'm passionate about sharing with you and educating the community about our English learners. So, let's see. And if I go like that, there we go. Okay, so tonight we're going to speak. Okay, slow down. I'm going to speak to you about the program in general, the EL program, also about immigrant education, and then information about DLAC. And the first thing I wanted to share, and this is, whenever I do this presentation, it's kind of like I am doing it so that to educate the most people possible. So my slides are kind of heavy with info, but I did want to say that how we determine who is an English learner is based on taking the initial English language proficiency assessment for California. And once students are identified as that, we provide them with the ELD program support. And so you all know how funding works, right? And Title III, it's like there's all these different layers of the funding, and then Title III is some of the most restrictive funding. And it can only be used for one of two groups, either the English learners or immigrant education. So what we used last year for the funding is we used it for tutoring and theater arts integration, supplemental teaching materials, and we brought back Project GLAD. It was awesome. And so that's what we're going to continue to do, a lot of the same this year. And yes, and then, some background of demographics. These are from the 14,000 plus students in our district. We have, oh gosh, that's tiny. Sorry, 65.7. It's 9,365 kids who speak English. And that's reported on the home language survey. It's what parents report when they first enroll a student in a California public school. And then the next largest group is the Armenian speaking group, then Spanish still. And then I know we've had a lot of immigrants from Russia. However, there's, only 1% who speak Russian, so as the home language. Sorry. So, as reported by the parents on the home language survey. So, when we have 15% or more of our students who speak a language other than English, we have a mandatory translation requirement. And although we don't have a mandatory translation requirement for Spanish anymore as a district, school sites do, and we continue to do. I'm getting distracted. Armenian. We still have a translation requirement, so that's why the email that went out today from Dr. Paramo included all three languages, English, Armenian, and Spanish, which I love. I love that everyone gets all three languages. So, so yes, the population of English learners is growing. I predict by our next census date, which is next month, we will have well over 11% of English learners. And then the other thing, let me explain why there's data missing on the reclassification rates. This is one of our measures to see how well our program is doing, is how many students are being reclassified as fluent English proficient. So the state changed when they measure reclassification. It used to be from census date to census date. Then they're like, oh no, wait, let's go back just for the school year. We're like, we already did that, and then you changed it, now you're changing it again. All right, so interestingly enough, they have not released data on DataQuest about reclassification rates for the state or the county or for any districts. And so Dr. Anders and I had to talk about how do we calculate this, and luckily, because, for the LCAP, and luckily, we did get guidance from the CDE on how to calculate it. We did that with our CalPADS reports. So these are not official reclassification rates. They're based on the math that I did with Robin, just to let you know. But they look fabulous. Okay. So, and then the next heavy slide, again, I apologize for all the info, but that it's important that people know that when we ask for like proof of age, and so that's usually a birth certificate, a passport, and that's where we gather the data of the country that the child was born in. We are not in the citizenship world. That's like not even on the radar, and it's a very broad category that the Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education, says that an eligible immigrant is. It's anyone from ages 3 to 21 who was born outside the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. So that could be a lot of people. In our district, it hasn't been for a while, and now it's growing. So let's take a look at that. So, and I wanted to point out at the bottom of the slide, LCAP supplemental funding will be used for more paraeducators. The thing is that our funding is based on census date from last year. So what our allocation that we got from the state for LCAP supplemental is not sufficient. And so we have been trying to shuffle things around to see like how can we provide more support. We've known that the schools needed support. And so, yeah, and then it takes a while for the positions to fly, and then, you know the whole hiring process. So I really was the idea of having long-term subs help out. I'm like, let's explore that. As I look at the head of HR. Okay, so back to the interesting things about our eligible immigrants. So they stay as an eligible immigrant for 3 years. And so although the numbers are going up, it still has felt different the last couple years. And we're like, what is it? So then I like data, so I teased it out more. And you can tell that in 2021, which was that our virtual year? That was our virtual year, wasn't it? So not a lot of immigration happening, right? Then the following year, a whole bunch, and then wow, it's growing more. And when I ran the numbers the other day, it was even more. And but this is what's interesting. Okay, so countries of origin. When I started in the district back in the 1900s, as my daughter likes to say, it was 1995 to be exact. But anyway, the majority of the kids who were born outside the country were from Mexico. And now the majority are from Armenia. And I have 5 years of data there to see how it's been increasing. Now, with the war that's going on with Ukraine, I would have thought we would have had more people from Ukraine. We still might get them. However, we've had more from Russia, which is interesting. So then I wanted to look deeper at that and be like, okay, so who are the people coming to us? And so many of the people who, like from Armenia, Russia, and Ukraine, are actually, well, from Armenia, they're Armenian for the most part, but from Russia, they're also Armenian. And also from Ukraine. We have a bunch who speak Russian and 20% who speak Armenian. So, which was a little bit of a relief to me because most of our paraprofessionals or paraeducators, and our community resource assistants who speak another language, we have a lot of Spanish and a lot of Armenian, and we're like, well, how do we support the Russian? But then when I was looking at the list today of our ELD paraeducators, we have half a dozen or more who also speak Russian. We have a lot of talented multilingual people in our district. Okay, so let's see. Oh, and the question is, how are we going to communicate with families? And we have classified staff who's bilingual. We have bilingual teachers. We have our district translators, and we probably need to hire more people if we can. So anyway, as I don't know, I didn't, clear that up with anyone before I said it, but. Sorry, just district translation would be great if we could have more than just a couple people who speak Russian and Armenian. Okay, so that is the state of the affairs with immigrant ed and English learners. And now moving on, whoops, I forgot, I skipped a slide. Okay, so this came as a question from a high school teacher. She said, what are the ages of the kids and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, I'm not going to do it by age, but I'll do it by grade group, right? So let me look back at my slide. So sorry. Okay, so before the pandemic, the majority of our kids who qualified as eligible immigrants, it was like, 18% from elementary and 15% from middle school and less from high school. Now the majority are coming from high school. So that's really impacted, it's impacted boroughs, but it's really impacted Burbank High, by a lot. And so just keep that in mind. Do you have a question?
Can I just ask a question about this graph? Yes. So it says average number of students per grade. Is that across schools?
Oh gosh, how did I do that? So it's the average number of students in elementary per grade level. So I don't know if that really even makes sense, but no, it doesn't. So grade span, right, sorry. Yes. So I should change that on the presentation.
I'm still a little confused, but I mean, the change makes sense to me. Just the
Yeah, the
number
bottom
itself doesn't,
line.
but that's okay. I mean, just the idea that it's gone up so significantly is
Yes.
wild.
Yes, exactly. Okay, and the fact that like there are in elementary grades are capped like throughout schools and mirror is capped or they were capped. Yeah, they're still capped. Okay. So we've had a lot of movement, away from the schools that have had larger number of ELs. And so it's interesting. It's an interesting trend. It's something that we need to address. A lot of it's with PD, and information. So, okay. DLAC. Okay. So just a reminder to the community, people at home, that DLAC, they advise the school board, but advising means like by asking questions, by informing, by sharing experiences, making suggestions and recommendations. And every year we do a program survey and we send it out. We sent it out, one year was just electronic, and then we didn't get enough responses. We sent them out both electronically and on paper. In terms of representation, like are we having more of a group respond than they are represented in terms of the number of ELs? At elementary, let's see, the 50, yep. I am over 50 I'm right. Okay, so 56, 58, yes, thank you. Percent of all the ELs in our district, the majority are at elementary. And out of all the responses from our survey, it was about the same. 53% were from elementary. Middle school, thank you, 17%. Note to self, bring larger than this, yes. And high school, there were more responses than their representation within the EL population. The kids, I don't know, they were impressive getting those surveys back. Okay, so, and then what happens with the surveys is like even the paper copies are, we have people at the sites who put the responses into our Google form, so it's all in one giant spreadsheet. And then we meaning ELD specialists and ELD coordinators, go into the spreadsheet and look for comments. And if people have given us their information, their contact info, then we're able to reach out to them directly. So, we always ask how well do you understand the different components of the program, starting with how we determine if a student needs to be assessed or not. And all the way, the thing that improved the most, but only 4%, but hey, I'll take it, is who to contact at the schools. That used to be closer to over 80%. And then after the pandemic, it was lower. So we're still trying to make ourselves more available, more visible, so that parents know who to come to. The kids know. Parents don't always know. The question that I always like to know is, is there animation? Oh, I had animation here. Has the ELD program improved my child's skills, English skills? And the majority, of course, strongly agree. 10% are like, yeah, I'm neutral, I don't know. And I mean, they know, but they were neutral. And then 4% had concerns. And I already described how we go into the spreadsheet and look at the concerns and then address them. Sometimes they're anonymous in the sense that like they don't give us their contact info, so we can't reach out to them, but we still take those comments and are able to address them at ELAC meetings in a very general way so that people have the information. And then we ask parents, what would you like in terms of how can we provide you with information? So the top response year after year after year is they want to know more about reading and math skills. Like how can they help their students with those two areas? And then I separated it out because what parents of high schoolers want to know about is a lot of times different than what elementary wants and middle school. So then that information is shared. We shared it with DLAC. I share it with my team, my specialists and coordinators, and then we know they share it with their principals. And so we get to then come together at each site and determine what we're going to provide in terms of parent ed. And then we also ask the preferred time of day. So the two top ones were either in the evening or right at the beginning of the school day. So we are alternating when we're holding our DLAC meetings even. We're 1 month they're in the evening and online, and 1 month they are hybrid in the morning. So, and so then the biggest thing was that they were talking about and wanting you to know about is that to improve our partnership with the PTA Council. And Mona Sleck, who was our DLAC president for like 4 years, she is on the PTA Council, and she wanted to be the liaison between DLAC and the PTA Council. And then in all the talks that we've had about during DLAC, they came up with this need to have like a parent, or this idea to have a parent-to-parent like gathering. So the PTA Council would be putting it together, and it's to introduce parents to resources in the community and resources in the district. And it's especially like for our parents of EL and immigrant parents. We know that so many times what parents hear from other parents can be really helpful, like if they're allaying a fear of some sort, or gosh, I don't know, where do I go for this, that, or the other? And so so we want to do that on a large scale, and then we're also looking at the smaller scale, which we talked about the buddy system like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. There are some kinks that we are anticipating with the buddy system. So Nuria Lundberg, who's our Spanish, she's a parent and she's also our Spanish translator, one of the Spanish translators in the district. She is piloting it. She's mentoring a few parents across the district at the different levels just to see, because she knows a lot about how the district runs. She was our DLAC president for 4 years. So she's hoping to find out, her being so well informed about things, how hard is it to find the answers and to direct the parents, and is that a job that a parent can do as a parent volunteer? So we'll hear more about that this year. I believe that's it. That's it. Yay. Okay. Questions?
Ms. Tabbitt?
Well, there's a couple of things. You talked super briefly about, well, all of our numbers and stuff, but now supporting our teachers. Where are we going with PD? Because I think that would be a great help for some of our teachers. And another thing brought up by Ms. Vargas was looking towards the future. She said they're coming. So all of these numbers, and they've all raised up, so it seems like we might be raising up more. So like you don't have enough on your plate to deal with. Just hopefully keep in mind about where we're going and what we need to do. And it seems what I'm hearing too from your report, while there's a lot going on, even the different school sites have a little bit of different needs.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, that, oh my goodness. So how do you plan and prepare for that when it's not cookie cutter? I guess, when is education cookie cutter? Goodness, what am I saying?
No, I understand. If it's not like what we've what we've had for so many years.
Yeah.
When
the plan's in place and all of a sudden, but wait, whoa. So, because that's kind of where we're at Huerta, is like, oh wait, what did, this isn't working now. So, just things I want you to hopefully keep in that side bag of things to think about and work on. Because, nobody has enough to do anymore, I guess.
Well, it's funny you should bring that up, because I was just talking with Sharon yesterday about PD and plans specifically for Burbank High. My plan is to build capacity at the sites. I can't be the only expert on ELs. And neither can the ELD coordinator or the ELD specialist at that site, because we're only one or two people. And there are fabulous teachers who know how to meet the needs of kids. And so, and some who are just thinking outside the box, and just like one of the biggest things for our immigrant students is to make them feel comfortable and that their language and culture are honored. That they're coming to school with a lot of knowledge. They may not be able to express it in English, you know, but they bring a lot to us. So I'm coming up with training for that I don't know if you want to call it training. Right now it's a PowerPoint of what, and the basic thing is like starting to be community building. And like shout out to Debbie Riggs at Edison. She has a whole bunch, she's a second grade teacher, and has a group of kids who speak, like 6 kids who speak 5 different languages at this one table, plus another group at another table that speak a couple of different languages. And she, you know how they say teacher, teacher, and the kids go, yes, yes? Well, then she asked them, she goes, well, how do you say yes in Armenian? And they told her, I think it's ha, but I maybe not. Ayo. Okay, well. Anyway, so they say, she goes, she says her thing, they respond in English, she says it again, then they respond in Armenian. When they're counting, using counting collections, which is PD that we've had for teachers, they also are learning some of the numbers in other languages. And it's just little things like that that can make kids feel comfortable, make them feel like they're valued. Building capacity with the teachers who already know how to do these things, like Debbie is going to be like, really, Jen? Because guess who I want to help be on the trainer of trainers kind of at Edison, you know? Did that answer that? Okay.
I think you do a fabulous job, and I wasn't looking, you know, like, I know how much you do, Jen. I do. So I wasn't looking to add more, but it's a need for the kids, so I needed to bring it up. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of PD at elementary, Project GLAD, now that we have 2 people who are at the end, one's on maternity leave, so we're kind of pausing. But our 2-people team will soon be certified, and then they can do in-house training. And we like to do it in the summer. That's when there's the most interest and everything else. What was my point to that? Oh, and when we lost one of our ELD specialists because she retired, lucky dog, we didn't have enough money to replace her in that one pot of money in LCAP, but through some, I don't know how, I was told that we're going to hire and finally replace her because it's been 3 years without her. And so that helps at elementary because then it frees up the ELD specialist to not just do like ELAC and, compliance paperwork, testing, that kind of stuff. We'll have more time to actually go into classrooms to do demo lessons, pull teachers to do training, and to build on and give them time to really dig into Project GLAD because it's a whole bunch of strategies, but it's a whole bunch of work.
You know, I'm sorry. I just keep going. A friend of mine and I have been working with candidates for assembly. And they are shocked, surprised, whatever you want to say, when we talk, we're working with them specifically on school funding and the local control funding formula and how it works. And sometimes doesn't work. And all of these children that we have, they're not funded. They come out of the general fund. Whereas the school district next door gets money because they've reached the 55% threshold. Is it 55%? Did I hit that right?
I thought it was 50, I don't know, for
Okay.
the concentration grant.
Yes. Because they reach that and they get additional money to support these kids that we don't get. It is so frustrating. And while I think there's some good parts of the local control funding formula, that is not one of them. And it'd be really nice if the state paid us kid for kid. So if you have, however many you said, I've forgotten, some
The English learners?
3,000, well, yeah,
Oh.
across the board.
No, English learners is like, it was 1,500 and something, and now it's
Okay.
going to be close to 17.
Wouldn't it be great to get that funding per kid?
Mhm.
Because we need to spend it on that kid instead of just, and that really needs to happen. If you're listening, Sacramento, it needs to definitely, I know they're not, but
Yeah.
we're trying. So
Mhm.
any time you run into somebody running for office above city council,
Mhm.
speak up, because it's just not working. It's
Yes.
just not working. And not everything, sorry, needs to have money thrown at it, but
Mhm.
in this case, it sure would be helpful.
Yes, money would be helpful. It would be helpful to be able to hire people, but anytime we hire people, we also have to train them. And so when I know, just me, myself, no. Again, it goes back to building capacity, because there's no way that I by myself as a teacher on special assignment can do all of it. And plus, I work with a whole bunch of talented people. So let's gather them up and come up with trainings that are tailored to their site, presented by people at their site, with my support and Lucy Bowers and Debbie McCorney. So you know who they are, right? The induction person and technology, and I can keep naming names if you want. We have great talent.
Dr. Weisberg, thank you. Okay, I have a couple questions. First, can you just talk a little bit about Project GLAD and what that does? And also, just tell me a little bit more about it. Because I'm
Project-
like on their website and I'm like, well, let me just ask you.
Project GLAD, GLAD stands for Guided Language Acquisition and Design. And it's strategies to get kids motivated about content, strategies to teach the content, strategies to teach reading and writing in the content areas. And I'm forgetting the last one, and if Lori Kelly is watching at home, I'm sorry. But it's things like, so for English learners, if I'm teaching and I have a big chart, graph, whatever it is, illustrated something or another that's labeled, when kids are working in their team tasks, like they're doing tasks related to what we're studying, I can bring up the English learners and use the same chart, but ask them targeted questions at their level. Because they, as we know, like with little children and it doesn't matter, when you're learning language, you understand it faster than you learn to speak it. And so they can point to, you can ask yes, no questions or simple questions where they point to things. So they're still understanding and getting the content. So, I mean, that's just one little example of Project GLAD.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to hold all of my many questions, but I will say, I think it would be really helpful, and perhaps this is already happening, probably already is. But once we start to move into LCAP season, just to get a sort of triaged list from you, like what are the most important things? And then what are the important things that aren't the most, like everything's important, right? But I think when we have conversations about what we need to be doing for the specific student learner community, everything feels so important that it's sometimes hard to see like what is going to make the biggest impact. So it would be, if we're not doing that, it would be really wonderful to have that so that can really help us guide our conversations moving forward. And I don't think anyone took it this way, but they're coming is not like we're not happy or we're not excited or it's like a horror movie and everyone's a zombie. Yeah, but I do think, you see in surrounding districts a huge influx of Ukrainian immigrants, right? And that might not happen here, but it might. And even if it doesn't, we already have, as we can see, a really robust community of immigrants who speak a wide variety of languages. So I think we can learn a lot from what's being done in surrounding districts. I think a lot of what you highlighted as needs are things that we're also learning, but I think it'd be really helpful just to better understand from the experts, what's the thing that's going to make the biggest difference? What should we be focusing on when we're thinking about allocation? That, at least for me, I think that would be really helpful. And I also would love to have you come back more than once a year. I know, I'm sorry, maybe somebody else, not you, but like to share the successes, not just to sort of do a high level report, but to talk about what's been really successful, because we know how much success is happening and we often don't get to hear about it. So it would be wonderful whenever we can figure that out. And again, I won't make you do it. It can be anybody you want, but really not as like an inquisition, but as a celebration of the work that's being done. Because oftentimes these reports highlight, and rightly so, the deficiencies on our end of what we need to be doing more of. But we should also be celebrating all the extraordinary work that is being done. So hopefully you will not hate me for saying that.
No, how could I hate you? No.
I mean, there's lots of reasons. Ask around.
Can I just piggyback one?
Yes, please.
Just to piggyback off of that, I know in talking with principals at school sites, they are experiencing these students coming throughout the year, right? It's not just at the beginning of the school year. All of a sudden, we have a larger English language learner population. And so I think, as Dr. Weisberg mentioned, the idea of like having this list of what would be the most important things, I think it's really important for us to keep in mind that the English language learner population that we have today will likely be larger 4 months from now, and we know we won't have the funding for those additional students, but we will have their needs that need to be met. And so just this idea of like, how do we balance things that we can, if it's PD, making sure that builds capacity to accept all of those students into our community.
Exactly. It is a tremendous task. And I love the team I work with because I know that it is one of their big priorities. And so they make time for it. So
awesome.
Which is awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Goldenberg.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. We are going to move on to 11B, Perkins Eastman, I don't know why, Facilities Master Plan presentation. I know Mr. Cantwell is going to kick us off.
Vice President Weisberg, board members, Superintendent Paramo, colleagues. It's my pleasure to introduce Perkins Eastman. Back in February, this board approved a contract for us to have them lead and spearhead our facilities master plan process. So for the past 7 months, they've been working diligently toward completion. They have a very busy fall ahead, but it was important that they actually be able to share some of the highlights of work that they've done, and let you know what the next steps are for the facility master plan over the coming months. So with that, I'm going to introduce Josh Jackson, who can introduce his team.
Yes. Not a problem. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting us. We're very excited to be here tonight. For our agenda, I'll do some introductions to our team. You guys could probably sit. I'm going to be here for a couple minutes. And we'll talk about our master plan approach, the overview of our process and findings, next steps, and we'd love to get your input and any questions that we have from the board. About myself, my name is Kim Coffeen. I'm an architect and have been doing schoolwork in California for over 25 years and love my job. Josh Jackson, who's a planner and engagement specialist, and we have Madison Stout, and she's our designer, and the first time in front of the board. So very excited to have this experience for her. AECOM is our consultant that is working on the technical side of the infrastructure, as you talked about roofs and HVAC, and met with Dennis and his team, and so we have really good information on that. Urbanomics is the demographic company that is actually an affiliate of our firm, and we'll be sharing some of the district-wide information today, and we have some drafts of school-by-school demographic information as well. And then CL Consulting is our state funding consultant, and they're in the process of providing eligibility for modernization for all of the campuses, as well as new construction if there is any. So we should have that information at the next board meeting. is really exciting. I know there's money out there to be brought forward to this district if well thought through. Just a little bit about Perkins Eastman. We're over 40 years doing K-12 schools in California and across the nation as well as internationally. One of the things that we're very proud of is our Lead for School projects that are the highest scoring in the world, and 2 recently opened net zero schools as well. So we use a lot of the research that we learn about those high performance buildings, and they become part of how we analyze the facilities that we're asked to look at. So as part of our master plan, we know that there's a lot of stakeholders involved in this, but there's a lot of data as well. So demographics, the facility needs, as well as educational adequacy. And again, that's a tool that we've used at each of the sites. There's about 240 metrics that we look at that sort of put us as an evaluation of how the schools meet high performance. We are sort of at the beginning of that lens of optimizing impact, so we're excited to be able to dig deeper into those scenarios. And again, this is a roadmap. This provides an assessment of the needs for the district. It will likely come with some level of scenario prioritization that you'll be able to use in the next phase as you implement, and if there's a possibility of bond. So this is obviously something you can't read very clearly from this area, but I'll just start at the top. The blue bars, starting in February, lots of data collection, which then goes into our site plans. So as we went to each of the sites, we looked at utilization of each of the spaces, and that affects how we analyze capacity. And why that's important, it is something that we use to test with the enrollment projections. So the school-by-school enrollment projections also shows us where the capacity is. Then we had lots of engagement. The first 2 kind of columns showed the various people that we met with and exchanged and had interviews with. We individually walked, all 3 of us and others walked each of the sites and interviewed the principals as well as AECOM, who did the technical site walks. We're almost finished with demographics, and we're in the midst of doing the state funding. So one of the things that we had the opportunity is meet with the Administrative Affairs Committee last week. We went through a process of sharing this information, and we also were able to talk to them about what they feel are elements that are strategies for facility improvements based on some of the guiding principles that Josh will be sharing.
Also want to take this opportunity to chime in and talk about some associated work with the facilities master plan that's not necessarily integral to this timeline that's shared on the screen, but there was a feasibility study looking at the Horace Mann site for use as workforce housing. That report was shared with the board, and just to give a very high level finding, developing that site as housing is possible, but there's a lot of constraints related to utility infrastructure, concerns about fire risk, as well as transportation and access. So while we found it is technically feasible, it is not a recommended course of action. Jumping back to the element of this work, which really is at the core of the master planning effort, as part of our early engagement with different stakeholders in the district, from leadership to department heads and other individuals involved in the district, we identified a set of draft guiding principles, which really work as a guiding light for this effort to help us understand what we're trying to achieve as we look at facilities and consider future investment. I'm not going to go through every word by word, but just to highlight some of the key elements, it's a priority for the schools to be safe and secure. We heard that earlier in the meeting. When students don't feel safe, they find it difficult to learn, and so making spaces that are safe and secure is far and away the top priority of this effort. Once we've addressed that, we do want to make sure that we have high-quality learning environments that are providing all the furniture, technology, and resources that our educators need to deliver the education to students. We also want to make sure we're making smart investments and getting the most bang for our buck when it comes to investing in our facilities. We're also trying to think about the needs of staff and employees in the district and making sure that we're doing everything we can to recruit and retain high-quality employees. The wellness of all those stakeholders, the students, students, the families, the educators, everyone involved with the schools is a really important element of this. And something we've learned here in Burbank is the importance of performing arts and arts of all kind. This is really a beautiful thing that sets this district apart from so many others we've worked with and is really a core guiding principle of this master planning work. We're also trying to keep up with the changes in the world and our environment and make sure that the schools of Burbank are sustainable and resilient. That's incredibly important, and I think we've all experienced some of the shocks to the system that can happen these past few years. And as we think about all these improvements, we want to make sure that we're providing resources equitably and creating school communities that are diverse and inclusive and providing that foundation of facilities to ensure that comes to pass. I mentioned some of these before, but just to highlight that there is really a lot about your school district here in Burbank that sets it apart from others. There's some really important relationships with city and community agencies. There's a lot of different organizations that are on your campuses. One of those is the child care, before and after school, as well as special programs that are looking after the littlest of our students. Again, the visual and performing arts, this is really personally one of my favorite things to see and experience here in Burbank. Another thing that sets you guys apart is there's relatively few what generally are called portables. Another thing that you guys do different, you call them bungalows. That's been a shift for us. But there's not many of them, and that presents an opportunity, actually, because it's something that could be changed and eliminate some spaces which may not be up to the standards of others. You guys have a lot of historically significant buildings, and they're not just old, they're beautiful, with really special architecture and something that, if I was a student, I'd be proud to go to every day. And then finally, just the remarkable diverse student population. I think we've heard the previous speaker was talking about the numerous languages that are here in Burbank, Armenian, Hispanic, Spanish language speakers, and then just really special, the number of students who are fleeing conflict and find a home in Burbank. That's a really beautiful thing that you guys do and support, and something that we think sets you apart.
Our consultant, AECOM, performed site walks with every single campus that you have on your portfolio. They wanted to assess what was working well and what may need some more support. So they were looking at things like the building systems, the envelope from the roofing to the flooring to the windows, as well as outdoors. We also performed site walks, and we talked with principals, the custodial staff, as well as staff. And we asked them questions like, what is your top priority? And if you could dream, what are some topics that you would be interested in seeing in this facility master plan? So within this matrix, you can see some comments that were brought up. What was the most interesting was seeing the overlap with the principals, the custodians, and the staff, saying that safety and security are the top priority within the district, with outdoor spaces being of concern and needed as well. We also met with the central administration, and we asked similar questions to them and saw an overlap with the comments from the principals with the administration, seeing that safety and security on the campuses is a top priority, as well as aging facilities and building conditions, food prep and serving spaces, as well as outdated technology. So while we're performing these site walks, we're looking at different characteristics of these sites. And with those characteristics, we're building out an educational adequacy tool where we're looking at how the buildings are supporting the whole child, from their social to emotional and academic growth. These categories are very important to understanding the entire master plan. With the caveat of no school district is going to meet 100% with every single school. So if you read the pie chart, you might see, well, why aren't we performing better here or there? And that's something that we want to discuss throughout the master plan. So with these pies, you're seeing 4 different elementary schools. You're seeing some categories are reaching higher at some schools and lower at others. For example, I'll point out the extended learning at Edison Elementary is significantly lower than Miller Elementary, and things that we saw at the sites were outdoor learning spaces at Miller Elementary that may not be at Edison.
So pivoting from some of the examples, looking at the deep dive into evaluations of individual schools, we're also taking a step back and looking at some of the high-level trends that are affecting the entire district. Our demographer, Urbanomics, has produced projections for the future of the district. And before I get into the details of those, I want to talk a little bit about the method and some of the inputs that are going in. Far and away, the most important element is tracking the birth rate. In this, it turns out to be an eye test, but it's a little chart showing the birth rates in orange tied to the kindergarten enrollment 5 years later. And you can see the strong correlation between birth rates and the subsequent enrollment in kindergarten. Therefore, we can use the birth rates to inform our projections, and that's fundamentally the most important element of the projections. There's also, here in Burbank, thanks to the high quality of your program, significant transfers of students from out of the district into the district. We've been tracking the historical trends and extrapolated to apply those moving forward, and that also informs the enrollment projections. And then finally, we use data provided by the City of Burbank on proposed and approved real estate developments to anticipate where we think new housing is going to come online and be able to apply what's called a student generation factor to different types of housing developments and generate some additional estimates that are based on students that are going to come from new housing developments. So we put that all together, we crunch the numbers, and quite frankly, the results are sobering. There's 3 lines right here, and what we're doing is looking at different potential futures of birth rates. So the top line is assuming that the current decline in birth rates turns around and comes back to a certain extent, so there's more students being born. The bottom estimate is assuming that the current rates of decline continue and it drops even more. And that middle estimate is assuming that the birth rates stabilize where they are at here in 2023, and we carry that forward. We have yet to develop a crystal ball, so we don't know which of those is going to be accurate. But the key takeaway here is that all 3 of those, even our most optimistic, the turnaround scenario, still working forward 10 years assumes calculates a 12% decline in overall enrollment. So again, we don't know exactly where this is going to land, but we're looking at about a decline of 12% to 20% over the next 10 years. And that has real implications on our facility planning. I do want to take a moment and say that these trends, I'm seeing some shocked faces, and that's fair, but this is something which is taking place across California and quite frankly across the nation. This is a study produced by the state of California, and the key takeaways here are that coastal urban California is seeing these kinds of declines across the board. This sort of high-level look at LA County and the San Fernando Valley is projecting a 17% decline over the enrollment, which is right in line with the more detailed calculations that our Urbanomics team has done with real data here in Burbank. So sobering news, but very important information for future planning.
And I do want to say that there's opportunity in this. Yeah, and the opportunity, if you think about where your elementary schools are across the board in terms of opportunities for non-loaded spaces, for example, a dedicated music classroom, a dedicated, fill in the blank. So there's a number of areas where we're going to see those opportunities arise as a result of this. And again, typically we're seeing 7 years out as kind of a more reliable 5 years. There may be some changes as we go, through this plan. So I did want to mention the community outreach strategy that we received with the administrative committee that we met with. One suggestion was to have a town hall that was virtual but recorded, and the ability to respond to questions and have an interactive opportunity with public. And so we'd like to propose that. In addition, out of that, we can develop frequently asked questions, because we're going to see quite a few of the same questions being asked. The other thing is tomorrow, the survey will be out for all of the public to respond to. That's parents, that's students, that's community members, all walks of life can respond to this survey. So we're very excited. It's in Armenian, Spanish, and English. And so I believe that will be on the website for people to respond to, and I know it'll go out with the superintendent's message to get the excitement around that. We've also encouraged the ASB lead to really encourage the high school students to respond. So we are in the process of, again, school level enrollment projections. We'll be going through some prioritization with you guys at our next meeting, which will be November 2nd. But we'll also include the state funding and cost estimates. So this is the perfect time for me to pause and get any questions. Happy to respond.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I don't have questions, and I imagine Dr. Weisberg doesn't have a ton of questions just because we've heard some of this. I have one, which is we've talked about that the master plan will include estimates for deferred maintenance. One of the guiding principles that we talked about was inclusive school communities. And so I'm curious about how, when AECOM goes and does site walks, how they think about ADA accommodations and kind of are we meeting requirements? What are there improvements that we could have to improve design at the schools, especially for students with special needs and staff with special needs?
Mm-hmm. The level of detail that we've done on the surveys is primarily infrastructure related. One way in which we would address that is based on a percentage, which we typically will address when you go into those projects into Division of State Architect. There's a requirement to meet a minimum requirement for accessibility upgrades. So that's an approach that we would take as a percentage that we know is going to be part of the process to bring the project up. The other area that we can identify more specifically is in the guidelines or standards. So if there's a request to have an accessible entry at the front of the campus, that'll be a component, as well as making sure that there's equal access through various parts of the campus. It's not a singular access point, which can be restrictive. So kind of defining that criteria, so when the next team and through implementation looks at that, they can then look at those guidelines as something that they would follow up on. Thanks.
That was one of my questions, so I'm glad that she asked it.
Great.
No, twins. I noticed in the principal interviews, only 2 of our schools highlighted ADA as being an issue, and we know that it's significantly more schools than that.
Mm-hmm.
So nice to hear that it'll be
across the board.
represented. Yeah. I had a question if you've had, to the birth rate jump very quickly. I wonder if you've seen this happen in other districts or in other areas where obviously a lot of the birth rate decline has to do with cost of living, people not being able to afford homes or to live in certain areas, specifically like Los Angeles or Burbank or major metropolitan areas. So it seems to me that indicates a real necessity or need to be collaborating with city leaders as well in order to address housing needs, in order to address cost of living needs. So I wonder if there's, if we have, or if there's room to talk to members of our city council. I think it would be a worthwhile conversation. They're actively engaged in work right now around affordable housing. But I think part of the way that we stem this is making it more realistic to live and have kids. And that can't really be generated from the school district, but really from the surrounding partners. So I just wondered if you've had that kind of conversation in other areas, and thoughts about perhaps involving some city partners in the conversation.
That is something that we can do as part of a process like this, and there's certainly will be no opposition from us to have those kinds of engagements, but we would probably need to follow the lead of some of the folks in the district here to make sure we're coordinating, engaging with the right folks, but that sounds like a great idea.
Thank you. Yeah, no, obviously but it was just a thought. This is actually a question for Dr. Paramo. What kind of, besides the survey going out, I imagine, in a sort of normal emailable fashion, what are we doing on social media and other ways to make sure that people are hearing about this survey so we can get the highest possible result?
Sure. In all honesty, we've been waiting to have this presentation to the board so that we can start to work on that. But it's our every intention to engage our entire community and to put multiple facets of communication out to hit a broad audience to be able to get feedback for sure.
Great.
I wanted to add also that as part of this work, there's a website that is. This presentation will be shared there afterwards, all subsequent presentations. That's also a place where you can access the survey and every link. So as the administration team uses all the tools in the toolkit, sending this website out can be a real one-stop shop for both getting information and providing input.
Last question. I was lucky enough to sit in on the Administrative Affairs Committee last week. Time has no meaning. And one of the things we talked about was, speaking to the athletic directors, it came up, I really enjoyed the activity you had us do. You referenced our ASB contact. So have there been conversations with student groups?
Not at the moment, but we'd love to. We love engaging students, and if there's an opportunity, if they do meet on a monthly basis, we can certainly engage with them.
I mean, I think it'd be really worthwhile. I'm not necessarily suggesting it's with athletics, because I think our athletic directors will be great assets as far as maybe some sports that need a little more time and attention. I'm thinking about ASB, I'm thinking about Black Student Union, I'm thinking about Gay Straight Alliance. So clubs that, with students that may have a particular perspective and point of view about issues of safety, issues of accessibility, that perhaps other student populations might not to the exclusion of other student populations, but I think it's really important that we talk to different stakeholder groups, if possible. I know we have a tight
we can
deadline.
coordinate that. I'll work with Dr. Young, and we can get those stakeholder groups together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just adding more and more to a very tight timeline. Apologies. That was my last question. Thank you. Ms. Tabbitt, sponsor campfire. She's good.
Well, thank you, everyone, for
Thank you very much.
for letting us speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What? Yeah, this is a heavy-hitting evening. 11C, timeline to consider placing general obligation bond measure on 2024 ballot. I believe we're inviting up Mr. Cantwell.
Board members, superintendent, colleagues, community. First, I will apologize. I'm going to keep my face mask on. Hopefully, you can hear me okay. This is now our third consecutive meeting where the board has a topic to discuss a potential bond at some point in 2024. At our last board meeting on September 7th, it was requested that we put together a timeline of what it might look like, if it was even possible to have the ballot measure go before the community in March. And so that's what you see tonight. If we work our way backward from a March election, we have to declare our intent to place the ballot measure by December 8th. And so our first board meeting in December is December 7th. That's the last date for you to make a decision. And so what we would really be doing over the next 2.5 to 3 months would be meeting with various stakeholders, meeting with our labor partners, community stakeholders, to seek input, to seek feedback on the development of a potential plan. But again, the ultimate decision rests with the board and would be made in early December in conjunction with the work that Perkins Eastman's doing with the master plan this fall as well. The most important thing I think right now, again, is really that we're in this information gathering stage as we try to deliberate on whether or not it is most advisable to bring forward a bond in March. I think you heard some really eloquent comments this evening from our community about why November might make more sense, and frankly, they might be right. And so for us to actually know the answer, though, really the next stage is to hire a bond advisor. You actually have it on the agenda for later this evening, ISOM advisors. We'll conduct a survey of potential voters in Burbank over the next week if the contract's approved. And they'd be prepared to actually present to the board on our October 5th meeting. So the next meeting that we have, they can let us know the results. And the types of questions they'll be asking are general questions of support for various initiatives of the district, support for leadership of the district, but also gauging their potential interest in a facility bond at various tax rates, and whether or not March or November is a better timeline. And so that is absolutely part of what they will be helping us understand. Certainly if the results were that we only have a 30% favorability for a potential March measure, that really would kill it. That would tell us that we don't have the ability to put together a successful campaign to bridge such a large gap. If what we hear from them is that we already have a 70% general favorability rating for March, and that would help inform, information gathering for you to help make a decision. So, again, the first key step to keep the door open for consideration for a March ballot measure is to approve the contract later this evening for ISOM advisors. They will be calling approximately 4,000 residents. They have about a 10% success rate on having people actually take their survey, and so the actual survey results will be from a minimum of 400 potential voters, and so that would be what they would help us to again identify the current sentiment of our community for general favorability of a bond. It was mentioned earlier this evening accurately that the 2013 bond was conveyed to the community as being at a $55 per 100,000 of assessed value tax rate. We actually, as a district, have been very focused on keeping our rates below that threshold, including we actually just did a refinance of some of our bonds in 2020 that saved us just under $4 million. And so as a result, our current tax rate for the community is actually about $50. So we have consistently been, ever since we sought community support in 2013, we have been very focused in our stewardship of the public dollars to keep that tax rate well below what was actually approved. So one of the things that the advisors will be doing in the survey is gauging community support for maintaining that $55 level that was communicated and was supported back in 2013. If the community did support that, it would yield approximately $450 million, about $500 million for facility improvements to our district. It'll also look at keeping the rate the same as our current $50 rate, so again, actually reducing what the community has already supported. And that would yield about $370 million if we kept it at the $50 rate. So those are the types of questions that the advisors are able to help us, not just kind of take a stab in the dark or to conjecture, but actually to get informed information about where the community stands currently, to help us know what a potential ballot measure might look like, at what level, and again, how we would go about building the campaign and coalition. So in response to a question that was asked also during public comment, is a legitimate and legal expenditure for the board to pay for this out of our general fund, Fund 1. And so it is, again, it's a customary, legal, and legitimate practice to do so. With that, again, you can see kind of we've laid out a general timeline of what would be taking place after the October 5th board meeting if the board decides to continue to explore the feasibility of a March measure. At no point are you closing off the ability to do this in November instead, but again, to keep open your options, it really requires us to keep marching forward on this timeline. With that, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I do. Would you like to go first?
Can I?
Yes.
Great.
By all means.
Thank you for putting this timeline together so quickly. I know it was a very quick turnaround on a request that I don't know that you were expecting. Can you talk a little bit about, one, are we surveying likely March voters or likely voters in general? And then also, are we asking them about this kind of calculus between November and March, or would we need to go out and do another survey if we wanted to gauge November?
Excellent question. So no, this survey is for 2024. So it will help us differentiate between likelihoods of success in March and November. So it is surveying voters in Burbank. It's not trying to right now zero in on only those voters for March. It's looking at the overall electorate to be able to help us, again, analyze the decision between March and November.
Whether we do March or November, and this question is probably more important for March, should it come back and say, yeah, there's enough people out there that would support it, would you be leading? Do you have community members in mind to ask to be on the committee to help? What's the next step? Are you ready? That's what I want to know. Are you ready for that?
Yeah,
What does it
Superintendent
take?
Paramo and I were talking earlier today about building out that list of, again, the folks that we'd be wanting to meet over these coming months as we really seek feedback and participation before decisions are made to move forward. And as was spoken earlier in the public comment period, again, that we would, if the board is going to move forward with a March timeline, then certainly we'd be working to have a team assembled for the actual campaign itself. But right now, we're at such an early stage. It's really about, again, that stakeholder engagement to seek feedback and help inform the decision.
But if he's coming back by the next meeting, I think you need to be ready to ask those people, hey, if this comes back, are you willing? Are you ready? Can you help us? I think that list needs to be made and ready to go. Even if it's November, they're going to have to start. So, and you need answers. You need
Agreed.
help. So,
Agreed.
and I think 3 people came tonight to talk about their support. So,
Yeah, that was excellent.
Yes. Couple of questions. Can you sort of frame for the community, if we don't do a bond, right? If we don't continue the bond that currently exists, what do we do? What can the district sort of sustain itself? Do we have money to make the sort of large repairs that we know we already have to before we even get the final facilities master plan back?
Yeah, we do not have a funding source. The California funding model for public education is really focused on operating dollars for instruction and not focused on long-term building construction or reconstruction. And so we don't have, again, any funding mechanism right now to repair the approximately 50 or so roofs that currently leak. We have that list, and that's just the ones that actually have active leaks, separate from those which are already at the end of their usable life, we know are going to have issues soon. For AC replacements, again, we know that it's a very high percentage of our AC units that are already beyond their usable life or will be hitting that time in the next 5 years. And so it is going to be some really challenging discussions and decisions that will need to be made for us to find revenue or to replace current expenditures or budgeted expenditures with these new ones. Again, we as a school district have roughly 85% of our budget is tied up in our people. We're a people business. And so anytime we talk about shifting expenditures from one budget area to facilities, as painful as it is, that likely means that it does affect personnel.
And speaking of that, so if we are to continue this bond, does that free up any money in the general fund that we might be able to use elsewhere?
Absolutely. So the things that we're talking about right now, again, are things that if we are replacing roofs that are failing without bond dollars, it will be coming out of the general fund.
Right.
And so that will be directly in competition with dollars that are available to fund things like staff, things like new instructional initiatives. And so those are in direct competition. Further, when we look at some of these, again, roof replacements or HVAC replacements, when you have an AC system that is as aged as ours is, it's horribly energy inefficient.
Yeah.
And so when you start talking about the energy efficiencies that can come with some of these improvements, you begin freeing up. We spend about $2.3 million a year in electricity. So, if we drive that down in a material way, that also frees up, again, dollars that are part of our general fund that can be used toward educational initiatives. There are actual creative ways, creative projects that we could be thinking about that also would be, again, helping to either drive revenue through joint use agreements or help reduce our utility expenditure through things like solar, photovoltaic, or other options. So there are multiple ways in which we can have bond dollars which are restricted in their use, can only go toward facilities and technology, cannot go toward our staff.
Right.
Again, can't go toward instructional staff salaries or helping us to add the paraprofessionals into the classroom. But there are ways that we can free up operating dollars to be able to use those funds instead to support those initiatives.
Last question, and you just said it. What's helpful for me, and I think I said this in a previous meeting, is bonds are for like buildings, infrastructure, like a parcel tax or something. That is for people. So this bond is for our infrastructure, our buildings and maintenance.
That's correct.
The last question I had is, I don't remember if it was Mr. Applebaum. I think it was him who talked about transparency in the process, and we know that we've struggled with that with previous initiatives. So I want to make sure, and I think in previous conversations, I think we all agree with this, that we are working with community partners from jump to get input, to get advice, so that we can do this together as a community, because what benefits the district benefits the city of Burbank.
Right.
So somebody, I don't know who brought this up, doesn't matter. But meeting with our city council partners to find out if they're thinking about putting something on the ballot. I don't know when we'll find out if there's going to be any kind of state bond coming down the pike and if we need to worry about that. But I think having meaningful conversations, not just with community members, but the larger community partners is going to be integral whenever we decide to do this. And I know you're already thinking about that. And again, just to clarify, us approving the consulting contract later on is not saying we've set a specific March or November. It's just to say we want them to explore, to do the survey, and then we can make a decision about where it falls.
Not only that, it's not committing the board in any way to actually doing a bond at all.
Great.
So again, it's the next step in information gathering to help inform your decisions.
Thank you. Yes.
One thing that I think would be helpful for the public and the community in general, right, is we have a school facilities oversight committee that's responsible for the existing bond dollars.
Yes.
And one thing that would be helpful is a really easy way to walk them through how that money has been spent. Not only the fact that we, it sounds like, have not drawn down on all of it, but have left taxes actually lower than we were entitled to, but also how we've spent those dollars. So I know that on our SFOC page, there is kind of a one pager for each school. But I was like, oh, the annual report, great. And I opened it up and I was like, oh, that's from 2021. So I don't know if there's been an annual report from the SFOC since April 2021, but I think just this idea of how are we communicating to people that we were good stewards of those initial bond funds. Here's what we spent them on. Like, there's a pretty cool chart in this annual report, but just having something that we could show to people as, this bond is done. We've spent all the money, as you've said a number of times to me. We spent all the bond money. What did we spend it on, right? And how much could we have actually gone out to voters for that we didn't spend? I think that's actually like a really interesting piece from the refinance and also from taking out less.
Yeah, great points as far as the level of oversight from the community with the SFOC, a really integral committee that's chaired by Justin Worsham, does an excellent job. They did approve their most recent annual report in June, and so I will make sure that we add that to the website because it appears that it has not been. It is. I will say we're only a year behind, though. Just to give a little credit to the committee and to our staff who upload things to websites. The committee is looking. Although we give them updates about current projects, their actual legal requirement is to be looking at the fiscal year after it's closed, and after they receive the audit report. And so the audit report will come from our auditors for the 22-23 fiscal year. Will come to them typically in January. And so when they produce a report in June of next year, it's actually going to be backward looking at this year that's already ended in June. So it's always kind of a year behind is the way that the timing works. Although again, their involvement is always looking at current projects, but the report, because it's tied to the audit report, is always the spring after the year closed.
That's super helpful. Yeah, I know, I was surprised that it wasn't the one that would be most recently, because I feel like I was
Yes.
at that meeting
Yes,
when
I
we
think you were.
approved it. So I thought there was one. So
Yes,
thanks.
absolutely.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you.
Hamel. Appreciate it. We are going to move on to new and unfinished business, to 12A, adoption of Resolution 5, proclaiming October as Burbank Unified School District's Filipino American Heritage Month. Yes, please.
And of course, I lost my place. Hold on a second.
12.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Weisberg.
That's me.
I move that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 5 proclaiming the month of October 2023 as Burbank Unified School District's Filipino American History Month as presented.
As amended.
As amended. Sorry.
As amended, you're right. I got
Second.
one right here.
Motion by Ms. Tabbitt, seconded by Ms. Ponser-Kamkar. Ms. Tabbitt. I have it. Would you care to read the
I have
resolution?
it right here. Would you like, do we vote first?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Motion
All those
carries.
opposed? No. Motion carries 3-0,
Okay.
as amended.
As amended. Thank you. Resolution 5 proclaiming October 2023 the Burbank Unified School District's Filipino American History Month. Whereas the Filipino American community is the second largest Asian American group in the United States with a population of approximately 4 million people. Whereas Filipino American servicemen and servicewomen have a long-standing history in the armed forces from the Civil War to the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts, including the 25,000 Filipinos who fought under the United States flag during World War II to protect and defend this country. Whereas 9 Filipino American have received the Congressional Medal of Honor, the highest award for valor in action against an enemy force that can be bestowed upon an individual serving in the United States Armed Forces. Whereas Filipino Americans are an integral part of the United States healthcare system as nurses, doctors, and other medical professions. Whereas Filipino Americans have contributed greatly to the fine arts, music, dance, literature, business, journalism, education, science, technology, government, politics, fashion, and other fields in the United States that enrich the landscape of the country. Whereas efforts should continue to promote the study of Filipino American history and culture as mandated in the mission statement of the Filipino American National Historical Society, because the roles of Filipino American and other people of color have been overlooked in the writing, teaching, and learning of United States history. Whereas it is imperative for Filipino American youth to have positive role models to instill in them the importance of education, complemented with the richness of their ethnicity and the value of their legacy. Now be it resolved that the Burbank Unified School District Board of Education proclaims the month of October as National Filipino American History Month and encourages all schools in the Burbank Unified School District to commemorate this occasion with appropriate instructional activities.
Thank you so much. Moving on to 12B, approval of LA County Arts Ed Collective Advancement Grant Program Agreement, contract RT 00782. Ms. Ponser-Kamkar.
Dr. Weisberg. I move that the Board of Education approve the Art for All Advancement Grant Agreement between the Burbank Unified School District and the Los Angeles County Arts Commission effective September 22, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 to accept an award amount of $21,000 and that authority to sign the agreement be exercised pursuant to contract number RT 007082 as presented.
Second. We have a motion by Ms. Ponser Kamkar, a second by Dr. Weisberg. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. No, those opposed? Nope. Then the motion carries 3-0 as presented. 12C, ratification of agreement between Boys and Girls Club of Burbank and the After School Education and Safety ACES program.
Dr. Weisberg.
Yes, ma'am.
I move that the Board of Education ratify the agreement between the Burbank Unified School District and the Boys and Girls Club of Burbank and Greater East Valley to provide services for the After School Education and Safety ACES program not to exceed $600,000 effective August 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, and that authority to sign this agreement be exercised pursuant to BUSD AR 3314 as presented.
Motion by Ms. Tabbitt, seconded by Ms. Ponser Kamkar. All board members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries, 3-0 as presented. 12D, approval of fiscal services reorganization.
Dr. Weisberg.
Ms. Ponser Kamkar.
I motion, move?
Move.
I move, weird. I move that the Board of Education approve the fiscal services reorganization, new job descriptions for the Director of Fiscal Services and the Director of Purchasing, Warehouse, and Reprographics, and placement on the classified supervisors and manager's salary schedule B as presented.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Ponser Kamkar, seconded by Ms. Tabbitt. All board members in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion carries 3-0 as presented. And thank you to our union partners for working with Mr. Cantwell on what I think is a really positive reorganization. Moving on to 12E, amended list of appointed members for the board governance committees.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
Since you brought up in a future agenda discussing these and looking at these, do we approve these committees now?
Yes, this is not something.
Okay.
Superintendent Promo, please.
Yes, so all this is doing is publicly recognizing additional members to the committee that were not, we did not have at the time. So this is not a problem with what was requested earlier today.
And Ms. Tabbitt, I believe our Academic Affairs Committee is happening before the next board meeting, so I'd want to make sure those people could
October 2nd.
hang with us.
Okay. All right, well then I will move
Okay.
that the Board of Education approve the amended list of appointed members of the Academic Affairs, Administrative Affairs, and Student Affairs Board Governance Committees effective September 22nd, 2023, and expiring June 30th, 2024, as presented.
Second.
All board members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion was made by Ms. Tabbitt, seconded by Ms. Ponser Kamkar. The motion carries 3-0 as presented. 12F, approval of agreement with School Services of California.
Dr. Weisberg.
Ms. Ponser Kamkar.
I move that the Board of Education approves the contract between Burbank Unified School District and ISOM Advisors, 12F, sorry, wrong one.
It's okay.
I recommend the Board of Education, I move the Board of Education approve the contract between the Burbank Unified School District and the School Services of California to provide recruitment and selection support services for the Director of Fiscal Services effective September 22nd, 2023 through December 31st, 2023, not to exceed $7,500 plus direct expenses as presented.
Second.
All board members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion was made by Ms. Ponser Kamkar, seconded by Ms. Tabbitt. The motion carries 3-0 as presented. 12G, approval of agreement with ISOM Advisors.
Dr. Weisberg.
Ms. Tabbitt.
I move that the Board of Education approve the contract between Burbank Unified School District and ISOM Advisors, a division of Urban Futures, Inc., advisors, to perform survey voter opinion services to enable the district to consider placing a general obligation facility bond on either the March or November 2024 ballot, effective September 22nd, 2023 through September 22nd, 2028, or until the agreement is terminated upon mutual written consent, not to exceed $15,000, and that authority to sign The agreement be exercised pursuant to BUSD AR 3314 as presented.
Second. All board members in favor?
I missed 2028 the first time I looked at this agenda. That feels like a very long time to have. It's just through the next election, it's two elections?
Well, I don't think you put on
So the contract this evening includes a variety of services. The only one we're actually asking for approval on this evening is for that first survey, which is why it's not to exceed 15,000. Anything else that would come before the board, if we were to move forward with those additional services, would have to return to the board for approval. And so the term is for that full 5-year unless we terminate or we choose not to. Choose not to move forward with any of those additional services. So we still have that flexibility, and it'll be something transparent with the board.
Thank you, Mr. Cantwell. I could not math the 5 years necessary. Thank you.
All board members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion was made by Ms. Ponser-Kamkar. No, Ms. Tabbitt.
Yes.
Seconded by Dr. Weisberg. The motion carries 3-0 as presented. You got to do this next one.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead. You're the pro.
Is that what we're calling it? Okay. Dr. Weisberg,
Yes.
I move that the Board of Education take formal action accepting the following gifts to the district, and that the board vice president, in lieu of the president this evening, convey appreciation to the donors, because as we've all discussed earlier, those donations are vital to the forward movement of our student activities from kindergarten all the way up.
Okay. All board members in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion was made by Ms. Tabbitt, seconded by Ms. Ponser-Kamkar. The motion carries 3-0 as presented. We are going to thoroughly and authentically convey our appreciation to the donors for the following gifts. The Emerson PTA wishes to donate to the district $270 to be used towards childcare for the PTA meetings at Emerson Elementary School. The Laura Wilkinson wishes to donate to the district $300 towards outdoor science school at Disney Elementary. The Disney PTA wishes to donate to the district $612.57 to be used towards childcare for the PTA meetings at Disney Elementary School. The Disney PTA wishes to donate to the district $1,500 to be used towards transportation for outdoor science school at Disney Elementary School. Thank you to all of our donors for these really important contributions. We're going to move on to 13, the consent agenda.
Dr. Weisberg?
Ms. Ponser-Kamkar.
I move that the Board of Education adopt the consent agenda items 13A through 13W as presented.
Thank you.
Second, sorry.
It's
It's
okay.
a lot of work with 3 people.
All board members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion was made by Ms. Ponser-Kamkar, seconded by Ms. Tabbitt. The motion carries as presented. Hold on, I'm turning so many pages. I'm going to take a minute to read. We have one retirement this evening. Tamara Perry from the Children's Center. She teaches little ones. She began her service in 2013, in October of 2013. So thank you so much for your contribution to our district. We are grateful to you and hope you enjoy your retirement. Nope, that's just the one. Okay, we have one, we're on to 14A, request to address the board. We have one card. Any individual or group representative present this evening may address the Board of Education on any subject within the jurisdiction of the school board by completing a blue request card and turning it in to Ms. Quinterio. Speakers are requested to state their name prior to speaking to the board. No more than 3 minutes may be allotted to each speaker except by unanimous consent of the Board of Education. Schlossman.
Good evening once again. Ms. Weisberg, I know that you like the Decepticons. The root word is deception, and that goes to your personality. You ask somebody a question about what to do if this bond wouldn't pass, or you don't put it before the voters. I'll answer it for you. Resign. Turn it over to the state, because you guys are inept at managing the district. Mr. Cantwell, I'm changing your name. I will now refer to you as Sweet Andy, because you are so good at selling this manure to the populace. How was it that I was able to guess $500 million? And I guessed that weeks ago. Back then, house values, when we were talking about replacing this bond, extending it, however you want to spin it, it's a tax increase. Let's say house values back then were $300,000. Try and buy a house in Burbank now for less than $1 million, okay? If the last bond was $113 million and this bond is going to be $500 million, how is it not a tax increase? Somebody has to pay the difference, and it's the people who've bought a house in the last 15 years, and you keep insisting it's not a tax increase. Spin it any which way you want. I know you're not very good at math, you've shown that, but there's a difference between 100 million and 500 million. Here's a clue for you, because you folks are clueless. If you have less kids and everybody's telling you, pardon me? If you have less kids and less students and your student population is shrinking, even your experts tell you that, it's something you've known for years, have less schools. Yeah, maybe less teachers if you have less kids. There's a correlation. And this is not something new. Before your time, we closed Benjamin Franklin. I guess you never heard of that school, or a fella named Melvin Pertlish. And finally, my last 48 seconds, Miss Weisberg, don't you ever equate me with somebody or some letter or some video that doesn't have my name on it. It's a form of slander. And I'm going to sit there. I'm not going to sit there. You're going to need a sergeant at arms to keep me quiet. And even then, you're not going to keep me quiet. When I stand here, I give you my honest opinion. This is what's called for. I don't do anything secretly. I've told you this over and over. And you and Ferguson want to equate me with somebody or other people who say things that you disagree with, that I have nothing to do with. Just because I give somebody a fist bump, or I'm polite to somebody, or I respect a difference of opinion, don't equate them to me. Are we on the same page on this? Don't do it again. If my name's not associated...
Your time is up.
Yeah, you goddamn right it is. So's yours.
Is that a second threat?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The next card I have is for our fabulous BTA president, Ms. Nicole Drebecki.
Good evening, Vice President Emily Weisberg, and members of the board and staff who are still here with us. My name is Nicole Drebecki. I am a Burbank teacher at Dolores Huerta, teaching PE. I'm in my 21st year, 17 years in BUSD, and a Burbank homeowner. I want to appreciate the Huerta staff that came today to talk about ELD. It has been something on my radar since the start of school. As you know, being the president of BTA, I hear a lot from our members at the elementary and secondary level, and they are just looking for support. So I'm happy that it's on your radar. I think our members would like to hear from BUSD at some point as to what determines when an ELD aide or translator is hired per school site. What are the ratios so our members understand that? I think communication in that regards would be very helpful for them because they do reach out to me looking for support, and I can tell them that I'm doing my part on my end, but they may not understand how it all works formulation-wise with BUSD and our budget. So I think that would be helpful. I think sometimes our communications with BUSD has been delayed. Just an example recently, when Dr. John Paramo was hired as our new superintendent, I felt like the social media websites were kind of putting it out there that he was hired, but then it kind of took a couple weeks later for BUSD to put it out to all of our members and all of our classified. I would have preferred that to go out a lot sooner. I think that will help with that. Obviously, my members are reaching out to me with their concerns. I know that we all have faculty meetings on the days that we're out early. I would like there to be a small window where our members can talk to their principals at the elementary and the secondary, what their concerns are, so that they can bring them to the principal meetings that they have, versus it all just coming to me. I think that way would give some transparency, so that our members feel like they have input with their administrators, and those administrators are there to support them. And I want our members to feel like there's not just a main agenda that's written every week that happens, that they can give some input as to what they're worried about and what's going on in their daily lives, since they're there Monday through Friday. Other than that, I appreciate you all being here and fighting for our students and our members. I know it's not an easy job. I know that you have a lot of responsibilities. I take my responsibility very serious for our members, fighting for them, fighting for our students, knowing that education has continued to get harder each year. And, I'm in it for a while. I'm only in my 40s, so I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. And I thank you for your time tonight. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brecky. That is the last card I have. Any comments from the superintendent?
Nicole, I would be happy to put that communication out about how we calculate and determine aids. And I will do that with the caveat that I really think we need to relook at that. And we need to look at that in light of the fact that we are redesigning an LCAP, recreating one, and with the lens of our new landscape when it comes to ELD. Because not only have our numbers increased with our English language learners, but so has the diversity of the students that we receive, which in all honesty, I think is only enhancing our community, enhancing our school population. So I think we need to relook at that. But I will, as a baseline, I'll be able to give you that information and I'll send it to you. As far as the announcement, I'm just gonna be totally transparent. Felt really odd for me to put an announcement out about me. And so there was a delay because I was trying to figure out, like, I didn't want to write my own bio. And so it took us a little while to do that. And then it took us a little while to translate it. Normally it doesn't take that long because we collect that and I usually do that. But that's the reason for that. But your point is well taken. That should have come out sooner. So I apologize. And I really like your suggestions about the principal meeting. So we'll work on that.
Thank you, Superintendent Paramo. Board comments?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Becky, thank you for your time and your attention to your members, our teachers, because that directly affects our students. When they come to work and are happy to be there and things are running smoothly, that's, that direct correlation. So thank you, and thank you for all the extra work you do too. It's appreciated.
Mr. Becky, thank you so much. I really continue to feel honored to have the partnership that we have with you. Those suggestions that you gave tonight I thought were really, really helpful, and certainly things that we can act upon. Mr. Schlesman, just to point out, I don't know the fist bump thing. Who I'm referencing is Christopher Michael Spencer, who you've told me numerous times that you work with to craft flyers and emails. So when I reference that, I only reference something that you yourself have admitted to multiple times. So when I say something up here, I'm speaking from a place of credibility and evidence. And if you don't want to be associated with him, that's entirely up to you, but as long as you do and you acknowledge that when something comes across my email and it has his name on it, I also know it also in many ways has your name on it, whether you wrote it or not. So thank you again, Mr. Becky, and thank you to everybody who stayed for the meeting tonight. An enormous amount of important business got done. We will adjourn this meeting at 10:19.